traditional up to this point, but it is such a fabulous result for the three drivers here. Third position for Kai Dalianani, second for Chi Chen-Bru, on the top step of the podium for the United States, and for the non-bike carpets racing team, it will be Sebastian Weldon.
Fun in the sun at the end of the season with lots of track time at a fantastic venue have all been hallmarks of the Gulf 12 Hours over the years. Welcome to the Lenovo Gulf 12 Hours for 2024. Qualifying is about to be getting underway. Cars will make their way down pit lane very, very shortly for the first part of 4 elements to the qualifying session, 15-minute parts. It's the average that will decide the grid, and after 3 long free practice sessions, now, if you like, it gets serious. Drivers have had a look at the track, teams have had a look at the cars and the setup, and now we are good to go. How much the grid is going to be relevant for a 12-hour race, which this year will be in 2 parts again, going back to the original format, time will tell. But it's going to be fascinating to see exactly who is going to be the fastest, especially when we get to that final element of qualifying when the cars are at their lightest. Alan Hyde is down in the pit lane, David Addison and Mark Werrell trackside looking out over the pit lane, which is getting ever more busy, Mark, as we get set to the first part of qualifying, and as I say, the first time really that we're going to see a proper fight. Free practice done, now things get serious.
Absolutely, yeah. We had a shakedown test, didn't we, on Thursday. We had then the free practice sessions over the course of today, and as you alluded to, for the first time, everybody is on the same page in the same chapter of the book, and it's all about, the average time. So we might see a variance between, you know, the platinum and the gold graded drivers out there compared to the silvers and the bronze that we've got in there. And even in the Pro-Am cars, you know, a Pro-Am car for this year still has to have a bronze. The Pro cars still have to have a bronze. So we're going to see that variance between all of the drivers. We've also now, of course, seen the sunset as well. We're getting towards the end of free practice 3, which started in daylight and ended just as the sun was setting. Well, now we are in darkness, which means that the air is cooler, the track temperature has cooled down, and that will also affect the performance. You're talking about the average times, David. Well, we've got some cars with 4 drivers, some cars with 3 drivers, but we've got 4 qualifying sessions. So the way it works is we won't necessarily in this first session see everybody out, because those cars have only got 3 drivers take part in session 2, 3 and 4.
Indeed so, and having mentioned that we go back to, for the race, the tried and tested format of 2 parts, it used to be 6+6. This year it's 8+4, which gives the opportunity for the second part to start in the darkness under the floodlights. But new this year is going to be the inclusion of the Cup class, Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. There are 4 of them with their own race within a race, and that's going to be worth keeping an eye on, not only in terms of the race, but also for an unofficial pole position as well. So drivers getting on board then, and we'll confirm who is behind the wheel of what once the lights go green at the end of the pit lane. The fast lane is open. That means that the cars, if the teams are ready, can be released down to the end of the pit lane. In theory, you'd like to be out first or last, so you can be ahead of the traffic or let the traffic go. But with 24 cars in the entry, not all will be out for Q1 because of the very nature, as Mark has explained, that some only have 3 drivers. But as ever, the Abu Dhabi Yas Marina Circuit looking fantastic, and a fascinating qualifying period is in prospect. Out of the free practice sessions then, all the best times have been hovering around the 1:52 mark, with, perhaps not surprisingly, Jules Gounon being the real hero earlier on today in FP3 when he got the 2Cs run Mercedes of Grove Motorsport down to a 1:52.204. Now, a little bit cooler. Qualifying putting a bit more pressure on everybody. A high 51 is the best time of the session. What do you reckon?
I agree, yeah. I think a high 51 is absolutely there in these cooler conditions, with the cars now fueled for just qualifying. We don't know entirely what everybody was doing, because in the free practice sessions, some of the teams were trying a longer run in the car, others were trying the qualifying runs in the car. But yeah, I think that cooler ambient conditions, more familiarity with the track, particularly for some of the bronzes. But in the case of someone like Jules Gounon and David Arrigon and some of the pros that we've got in there, yeah, I think high 51s is probably going to be the quickest time that we'll see. But again, it all comes down to then, that's the time that one driver puts in.
Absolutely.
What do the others do?
And this is one of the beauties of this year's race, that the bronzes, the lower graded drivers, because some are going to have a bronze, 2 bronzes, 2 silvers if they're in Pro-Am, but every car has a bronze, and it's getting the most out of the bronze driver that is going to dictate this, and how you use your bronze. In a sense, you'd like to get all of their drive time done potentially in the first part, the 8-hour race, and then you keep your quicker drivers, if they're all on the lead lap, and that'd be great, for the shorter 4-hour sprint to the checkered flag and the result. Yeah,
we were discussing earlier on where do we think the win's coming from, and I'll still stand by what I said earlier on today, and that is, you know, the pros, the platinums and the golds are always going to do what the pro drivers will do, and that is pound round and be so consistent and make sure they deal with traffic appropriately. The big catalyst for what the outcome of the race will be come tomorrow is going to be having a bronze that is quick, is consistent, doesn't make mistakes, and it's going to be the bronze driver almost and their performance that's going to put the team in the correct position.
Absolutely right, and that's one of the fascinations of this, and it's why the bronze drivers like it, because they make a contribution. You know, as the lights go green at the end of the pit lane, we are in business. There are some GT formats where, you know, the bronze driver has very little to do. If you think about a sprint format, 25 minutes of a 1-hour race and you're pretty much done. But here, lots of track time, and that's one of the big selling points of this event. Right, Q1 then is underway. It is qualifying driver 4 that will go first, and just there, going through the pit tunnel, is number 44, which is the ARC Bratislava Lamborghini Huracan. That's the Miro Konopka, Adam Konopka, Neil Muston, Amir Naran driven car. Amir Naran at the wheel of it, and Mark, there's a story attached to that.
There is, yeah. It was the session earlier on, so it was free practice 3 where Adam Konopka was driving the car around the circuit, and he was pushing hard. I chatted to him afterwards. He said, I was up on my deltas, I was pushing as hard as I possibly could, but he came through the section at turn number 14 as they come under the W Hotel at Yas Marina. He said, I just lost the back end of the car, couldn't catch it in time, and he backed what is the only Lamborghini we've got in the field, the Lamborghini Huracan run by ARC Bratislava, into the barriers and caused damage to it. Now, the damage was fairly light. It was right rear suspension, it was under tray, it was the rear wing on the car, but it's good to see that that car is already out. However, for MP Motorsport and the Gosner family, all does not look well with their stranded number 58 Mercedes in the pit lane.
Absolutely, stalwarts of the event, but it has expired heading down the pit lane, so the car's being allowed around it. Yellow flag then to warn drivers that there's an issue. The team is on its way to try and recover the car. Now, whether that is something serious or whether it's a pure stall, we'll try and get to the bottom of. If a car stalls, quite often it needs a good 30 seconds or so to sort of power down and have a breath and then power up again. Marshals get it out of the way. Mechanics on their way down the pit lane to try and help fire the car up again. But this is not what the team needed, because normally those cars go like clockwork. I know that over a long race anything can have an issue, but you would have thought that at the start of a session like this it would have been fine. Now, ignore the lap they're on, because it's an out lap. It's the end of the next one where we start to get interested in the times.
It is, yes. We're just looking at the moment the Kessel Racing Ferrari in the hands of the Turkish driver Murat Cihadaroglu, heading down the straight at the wheel of a couple of Kessel Racing Ferraris that we've got out. Number 59, Garage 59, McLaren out there as well. That will be in the hands of James Jake,
who has not driven that car
part of the session.
Yeah, he's not driven that car before. He spent all year, his comeback year, in an Aston Martin. It wasn't a very happy season for James, in fairness. It was a single-seater gun a good few years ago, but James Jakes then exploring something new in terms of team, in terms of car, and it'll be fascinating to see how he gets on with this, because having seen him in GT World Challenge, it's hard to know whether it's James's pace or the car that has been the catalyst for the results, and I still maintain James is better than his results have allowed him to look this year.
Yes, certainly got plenty of experience, but yeah, most of that, as you say, single seaters, whether it be GP3, GP2, IndyCar as well.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, it was no slouch.
So he'll be looking to try and push on. So he's just heading up towards the conclusion of the first sector shortly. Fastest through the first sector is James Jakes. He's just done 24.494 through the first sector, as it all starts to come together for him. But we'll keep an eye on what happens through sector 2, sector 3, as more and more cars all file out of the pit lane, and more are just in the process of completing their opening laps.
So the pit lane is starting to empty. The pit lane, of course, a hive of activity through the course of the 12 hours in terms of pit stops, driver changes, refueling, tyre changes. You'll find a whole manner of people, a whole manner of equipment down there, and inevitably in a long race there are one or two sort of quirky bits of ephemera down there as well. Let me introduce you to one of them. Let's say good evening to Alan Hyde in the pit lane. Oh. And silent rain. I've upset him again.
It's not the first time this weekend.
He's definitely in the pit lane, and he definitely has a microphone. Alan will join us when he's able so to do. In the meantime, we've got on the timing screen the Garage 59 lap being posted by James Jakes, and you're looking at Ferrari number 77 of the South African endurance champion of this season, Zoli Letlaka. But James Jakes is going to offer up the target time, is he not?
He certainly is. He's quick through sector 1, he's quick through sector 2. He's not the quickest through either of those, because at the moment it is the Santalok Audi of Paul Yvra that is purple through sector 1 and purple through sector 2. But whatever times James Jakes sets, for the moment, should pop him to the top of the times. And the benchmark time that he sets is a 1 minute 57.932, but Paul Yvra goes over the start-finish line a split second later, and it's the number 26 Santalok Racing Audi that has now posted 1 minute 54.465.
And Paul Yvra has had a very, very good season within GT World Challenge Europe, so he's a quick driver, and Santalok knows that car very well. They've run the Audi R8 for, gosh, how many seasons? And everyone knows the team. You know, you've got a lot of people that come to this event to try a new car, try a new team. It's a bit of a test, if you like, for next season. Santalok are coming here with a really regular, really experienced team, engineers, drivers lineup. You know, they don't have much new on the table. It's all tried and tested, and maybe that's going to be pretty crucial to getting a good result come the end of tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's one of two cars that Santalok have got out. As you say, Paul Yvra going superbly well in GT World Challenge Europe. Right, okay, Gosners are out there, so all is well with the number 58 Mercedes. Whatever the problem was that caused them to grind to a halt in the pit lane has been very quickly rectified by the MP Motorsport team, so good to see that familiar livery. They ran very similar livery last year, didn't they, in the Gulf 12 hours. Good to see that car out there.
Reminds you of the ABBA Racing Neri British GT Mercedes.
Very much so.
One of the stars, I know we're not looking at it yet, but we will get there. One of the stars of GT World Challenge Europe Sprint this year, out of the Silver Cup, has been Ferrari Challenge Europe champion of 23, Alessio Dono. He is in the entry for AF Corsa, and he's also done an absolute best within a sector. So keep an eye to number 51 Ferrari, Alessio Dono, who's driven with Tom Fleming in Europe this year. Very, very quick, and still a bit underrated, but he'll be one to watch, I think, over the course of this weekend. On track, Lamborghini and Porsche go over the line. Thomas Gosner kind of on nodding terms with the apex there, but he ran rather overly wide, I think, at turn 9, so he's squandered a little bit of time on this lap, as Paul Yvra quicker than James Jakes now by a couple of tenths of a second. Murat Chaharoglu is third, Christian Hook is fourth, Philippe Pret fifth, and Kyle Tilley sixth fastest, the American-based Brit for Lion Speed, who is the only person I think we can construct a sentence around having been a Castle Combe Formula Ford racer many, many years ago before he went to the States, Kyle Tilley.
Didn't take you long to get that one in, did it?
Ticked off the list. Gone.
Alessio Dono, purple, absolute best through the first sector at the wheel of that number 51 AF Corsa Ferrari. Quicker than he's previously gone through the second sector.
Just gone over the line.
About to head through the line and goes and pops in the fastest time of the session. 1 minute 53.308 from the Ferrari European world champions. So you said partnered up with Tom Fleming. The two of those were vying for the championship, weren't they, in Ferrari Europe a couple of years ago, last year, and have teamed up this year.
I forget which way round it was, but
I think
if Dono won the championship, Fleming was the runner-up, and it was the other way around. They were 1-2 in the championship and 2-1 in the world final.
Yeah,
whichever one didn't win the championship.
Dono won the championship, Fleming won the world final.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Tom had I know we're going off at a tangent. Tom had a big accident in practice at Misano, which hurt his back, and he had to sit out that and came back in July, but they had a win at Hockenheim. So yes, Alessio Dono, very, very quick driver, and former Grand Prix racer Roberto Merhi has gone second behind him for Racing 1, number 6 in the Ferrari that he shares with Ernst Kirchmeier, Marc Rosser and Giacomo Altwe. So it's going to be a nice jumbled grid, all this, I'm pretty convinced, as now Julian Hansens goes up to 5th, number 91 in one of the Cup Porsches. So, of course, some cars not yet out because they've only got 3 drivers. Some cars are out of position. Why has Zoli Letlakas... Oh, he's had his lap time disallowed, that's why. I was going to say, why has he not been given a lap time? But it must be that the one lap that he did has exceeded track limits and it's been taken off him, because he's not pitted as far as I can recall. Right, looking at number 2, Audi, which is the Xavier Knauf, Gregory Servet, John Corbett, Casper Stevenson car. John Corbett at the wheel of it, the Australian driver, who we've seen in the event in the past. Casper Stevenson we've seen here going back to Mercedes AMG days when he was quite a star 2 years ago. But John Corbett behind the wheel, and currently he is 10th, and a lap has now been credited to Zoli Letlaka, and he's gone to 11th.
I did notice the Haas RT Audi for a good chunk of the free practice session, even when it was on hot laps in free practice 3, had its hazards lights on at the front. They weren't flashing at the back, but it's clearly some sort of electrical issue that was going on there in one of the sessions. Did you spot that?
Not on that car, but on the Simpson Audi 96.
Oh, was it Simpson Audi? Yes, it was. So, right, you're absolutely right, it was.
Yeah, but yes, I did spot it, and it seemed to be there all session.
It did, yeah. And it was in the FP2 as well. It was there as well.
Yeah,
some sort of strange thing going on with that car. So let's see what this lap is starting to string together for John Corbett. He has gone quicker than he's previously gone through the first sector. He's given a little bit of time away through the second sector. He's about to flash his way over the start-finish line now, and the upshot is that was about a tenth of a second slower than his previous best, so his best remains at a 1:57.273 so far, which puts that car 10th overall. But the important thing at this stage is that that is the quickest car that runs in the GT3 AM class. So John Corbett, quickest of the AM drivers that's out there at the moment.
And the Audi remains, I know it's an older car and it's coming to the end of its development, with Audi having stopped activity really in GT and touring car terms to concentrate on Formula 1, but it is still a turnkey GT car. You know, it's plug and play, isn't it? You get in, you deliver, and that's why Santalok has still had good results. It's still so competitive with them, as down the pit lane come Porsches aplenty, with the Cup cars, including there the very smart Qatari car, and also one or two, or the Lamborghini comes down the pit lane, and Santalok's number 26 Audi in the background, the Gimplar, currently Paul Everard, Benjamin Ricci and Michael Blanchemont car down the pit lane. With how long to go? 3.5 on the clock.
Yep, so the pit lane beginning to fill up at this stage. Alessio Dono was still on another quick lap actually at the wheel of number 51 Ferrari, through and over the start-finish line, goes at 77, still trying to make ground, but for Zoli Letlakas, that lap time was about 0.4 of a second slower than she had previously gone. However, for Alessio Dono, who is chasing her around the circuit, he's just set the fastest time of the session, again that time through, 1:52.608, means at the moment he's about, what's that, 0.6 of a second quicker than anybody else in this first aspect of qualifying. Dives up the inside of Zoli Letlakas, or is looking to try and do so as they exit turn number 5. He's going to build the speed down the big long straight into the heavy braking area for the left and the right flick at turn 6 and turn 7. You can see the gap closing between the two respective 296s all of the time. Another car that's on a quick lap as well was Paul Livroy. He had gone purple through the middle sector but opted to come into the pits at the end of that lap, so that begs the question as to whether he had made a very small mistake through sector 3 or not. So with the session coming to a conclusion, still a couple of minutes to go, we'll keep it on it, but let's go down for the first time in this session to the pit lane and Alan Hyde.
A bit magical when darkness descends, doesn't it? We've got these amazing floodlights right the way around the beautiful Yas Marina Circuit, but there's something exceptional when all of a sudden darkness falls, and it does so over about a 5-minute period, about 6 o'clock in the evening at the moment. The floodlights are basically illuminating the circuit, but it's just a feeling, and you could cut the atmosphere with a knife just leading up to qualifying getting underway. They've had plenty of track time today with all the free practice sessions, but when it comes to the first competitive session, which is what we're enjoying now, it's just something special, isn't it, in the world of motorsport when darkness descends.
Yeah. No, you're right. There is something about racing under the lights, whether it's a long circuit, whether it's an oval, you know, a NASCAR type event, or a short oval in the UK. There is something about racing under lights that is quite special. It has a different feel. Even the engines sometimes seem to sound different, don't they? It's just everything seems different.
I think your senses are heightened, aren't
Absolutely
they? Whether you
right.
be a spectator or a driver or whatever the case may be. Roberto Mehi this time through. Keep an eye on the number 6 Ferrari. It is shortly to go over the start-finish line, but he has gone quicker than he's previously gone through Sector 1 and Sector 2. So could well be on for an improvement. He's about to flash his way to the conclusion of the lap now, but Sector 3 was not quite as quick as he's previously gone, and the lap time was still his best. So with what he did through Sector 1 and Sector 2, still an improved time, 1 minute 52.956 from that car. Alessio Dono still out there as well at the wheel of the 51 AF Corsa Ferrari, fastest car in the session, David, is still going well. Absolute best through the first sector for Alessio.
Yellow flag at turn 2 as Alessio Dono then heads towards the timing line. He has done a 152.6. Now, of course, at the moment, although we're talking about cars being quick, they're on the heaviest of the fuel load for this session. They obviously get lighter as the session goes on. The flag is imminent, and quite a few have bailed early, which gives the teams the chance to get the next driver in and settled. In that respect, it's interesting that Dono not only is staying out, but is still able to respond. But he's not the only one doing purples, because Paul Everard, likewise, as the checkered flag goes out, has done an absolute best in the middle sector. But then he bailed at the end of that lap. And also, who else is out there improving? Nobody. Just Dono now. So Alessio Dono has dropped time in the second sector. He's coming up towards the checkered flag, and there aren't that many cars still circulating, but I fear that the time that he junked in Sector 2 may well go against him. A 52.7, yeah, he's about a tenth down.
Yeah, he lost 2 tenths in that middle sector compared to what he ought to be doing, or the fastest time that we've seen in that middle sector. So it was Sector 2 that sort of unravelled it a bit, and then he lost just a few more thousandths in Sector 3. But still good, consistent lapping from Alessio Dono. He'll be pleased that his job is done. He's ticked off what he needed to do in that particular aspect of qualifying session. So it's now up to the remaining 3 drivers in that car, which is Alessandro Cozzi, Marco Pulcini and Giorgio Seneggiotto, as to what they might be able to do. But we don't know who's going in which order in qualifying until the cars come out of pit lane, and hopefully they've got the transponder in the correct position.
Yeah, I think the drivers have declared, although we've not been privy to that declaration, but it's part of the intrigue. Right, so the cars will make their way back to the pit lane, and the next driver will be on board. New set of boots for the car, but as we've been saying, they get lighter and lighter and lighter as you go through this session. So Alessio Dono, the fastest, 152.6 from Roberto Mehi, 152.9. And then third fastest Paul Everard, 154.1. James Jakes fourth on a 154.6, and Julian Hanser's Porsche fifth, 1 minute 55.6. So to the pit lane they come. Pirelli tyre technicians go and have a look at the tyres and the state and the wear and get the information that they require. We've then got this 10-minute break between part 1 and part 2, and that gives the teams chance without too much of a flap to get the next driver on board. Now, the next part of qualifying becomes ever more interesting, because different drivers, but also a busier road. You've got quite a few more cars out on track this time around, like another, 8 or so, to make the road that little bit busier.
Is it 9?
So
9 more cars,
there you've got 22, and the Roberto Mehi Ferrari also, which is 3 tenths down. So a busier road we have in prospect. Down the pit lane comes James Jakes. Decent first effort that, to be 4th fastest.
I'm just surprised at the pace that Christian Hook is coming back into the pit lane at. He's taking a very, very slow in-lap, which is much, much slower than I would have expected. So hopefully there's no particular issue with that car, because it does seem to be taking a long time to get back round into the pit lane area, considering that teams have only got a short amount of time before the pit lane will open again, the fast lane, and they'll be servicing the cars and getting them back out for part 2 of qualifying.
Yeah, and Christian Hook is not inexperienced in Ferrari terms and GT terms as well, so might be a little concern in the cockpit there. But the rest of the team's all good to go. And as we say, Alessio Dono then the quickest at the end of Q1. So it is Alessio Dono fastest, 152.608 from Roberto Mehi, 152.956. Third for Santalot, Paul Everell, 154.137. Fourth quickest, James Jakes from Julian Hanses and Philippe Pret. Christian Hook was seventh from Murat Juharoglu. Carl Tilley, ninth. John Corbett was 10th. Zoli Letlaka ahead of Stephen Laidlaw, regular racer out here. Amir Naran from Sheikh Yassim Al-Thani. And I thought we were told it was Thomas, but the timing screen says Corinna Gosner, 15th. So we'll go with what we have at the end of the session, because it may be the transponder was in the wrong place at the start. Corinna Gosner then rounding out the 15 that we had. But as I say, it'll now get much busier, and we're building up towards the quickest drivers in right at the very end when the cars are at their lightest, and therefore the best lap times are going to come.
For qualifying, Dave, you know, it's a 12-hour race. You know, how important, in your opinion, is it that you want to be right at the sharp end? Is it that important in a 12-hour race?
I wouldn't have said so, to be honest. I mean, for pride, you want to be quickest. If you're on pole position, you say, yeah, it's really important, it shows how good we are. And if you miss out on pole, you say, well, you know, it's a 12-hour race, doesn't really matter. You'd like to be up at the pointy end to prove that your car is quick, certainly. But I think more important than pole is going to be staying on the lead lap.
In the first 8 hours, ever more so, yeah, absolutely, because for part 2 of the race, the grid for that is formed as per the finishing positions from part 1. So if you are a lap down in part 1 of the race, you will carry that fact that you are a lap adrift when you enter part 2 of the race. If you are a lap and 3/4 of drift, you start race 2 just a lap adrift.
That's
you
right.
gain that 3/4 of a lap back in reality. So it's the full laps that carry over.
And that's where the interest is, and the strategy and how the teams divide all that up, especially, and we haven't yet got to it, but they have these regulation imposed pit stops, so there are 9 to do in the 12 hours, 6 in part 1 and the other 3 in part 2, and there's also a minimum time that the bronze must do and how you factor that in. So yeah, the teams do need to be quite savvy about it. It's not just go round and round and round for 12 hours, is it? They do need to work out how best to deploy their drivers and when.
Thought I might see if I can get a quick word with Roberto Mehi, who is down in the garage. Never having been to this event before, Roberto.
Yeah, first time with me in a GT3 race. Obviously, I race Super GT in Japan, but we have like confidential tires, not Pirelli, pretty different. But it was not a bad qualifying, I say, from my side. P2, where we came from free practice, I think we are pretty okay. Then also learning this Pirelli tire that is a bit special, and you need to adapt a lot your style to it. But I think the team did a pretty good job of improving the car through all the weekend, because first time I drove it, I didn't feel pretty confident. But now in the quali, it was the best moment of the car, and I think the guys did a pretty good job. Obviously, we missed, I think, a couple of tenths, but I also had a lot of traffic on this qualifying, because I think were many AM drivers driving. Then you know, it was the advantage of not having so many cars on track, but also the disadvantage of having the traffic. Then, compared to when we used the tires before, looked like every lap we had a bit more of grip, and then I had to stop my run like from lap to lap because of the traffic.
It's one of the features of this event. It's a lovely sort of season closer, if you like, at the end of the year, to come to what feels like a little bit of an end-of-year holiday, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels like a holiday because we are here. It's hot. Back at home at my place is maybe 5-10 degrees now, and to be now here in Abu Dhabi is nice. Good weather, sunny during the day. In the night is refreshed, but just enough to cool down our bodies. But yeah, it's a very cool event, and I think the time of the year is also good. It's like the last race celebration of the year, then we need to try to win it.
Superb. Right, okay, so that's the plan for tomorrow. 12 hours. It's going to be a feature, you know, slower traffic. It's going to be a feature for 12 hours.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. When you have, you know, different cars, different type of drivers, like bronze, silver, platinum, gold. It's funny because you need to overtake, and you need to also think all the time how to don't lose time, you know. But I trust on my teammates. I have 3 other fantastic teammates for this weekend. And I think between the 3 of us, we can do a good job. Let's see what happens tomorrow. It's going to be a very long race with a stop in the middle. I never did that before. But
oh no, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So don't relax too much, because you think you've got 2 hours, you haven't really.
Yeah, you have time to complain on the other drivers. You know, in those 2 hours you can go to talk to the others, and why you do that, you know. Let's see, but it's looking forward for tomorrow to see what happens.
Roberto, thank you so much for talking to us. Roberto Merhi down here in pit lane.
Well, surely Roberto, being a Spaniard, would like a little siesta, wouldn't he, in the middle of the race?
Yes, quite.
And just to make the point that car that he drives will be in Pro-Am, so Ernst Kirchmeier and Mark Rosser as the 2 bronzes. They've got to do 6 of the 12 hours between them. So the contribution that he can make there, as very much the pro, is limited. Now, at the front of the queue, number 17, the Enrico Fulgenzi Porsche, that's under investigation for being in its garage, not on the pit apron at the start of qualifying. Even if you weren't in Q1, you still had to be on the pit apron, and that car may not have been. So that's being looked at. The fast lane is open. We are almost ready to go for the second part of qualifying. And now it's sort of double interest. It's what they're doing in this stanza, but it's also what this is going to do to the average, Mark.
Yes, absolutely, and this is where we'll see that whole dynamic coming into. We might be concentrating on what's going on and how the lap is building for one individual driver, but it's the impact that lap has on the average, and that becomes ever more important then as we get to Q3 and then we get to Q4, because you will see some shuffling of the average order, but we will try and keep an idea as to what's going on in this individual session as well for each one of the drivers. So most of the cars now starting to get ready to head out. Those that are still up on their air jacks without tyres will shortly have their control Pirelli tyres bolted on. 4 cars sitting at the end of pit lane. They're all on the same tyre, David. They are limited to 16 sets of tyres. They can use a carryover set that's been previously purchased by Pirelli this year in Free Practice 1. The 16 sets that they're allocated then have to be used through all the rest of the sessions, including Free Practice 2 and 3, and qualifying, and of course a 12-hour race tomorrow.
Which should give them the opportunity for fresh boots at every pit stop and for every part of qualifying. But we are in business then now, as we say. Cars a little bit lighter, and you're building up to quicker drivers in for Q4, but some of the drivers, some of the cars we've not seen on track yet in the qualifying session. 42 Porsche making its way down the pit lane for Toro Verde GT, the British team. Despite its rather Italian name, it's very much a northwest of England team. The Gosners are back out as well. Graham Mundy in the Porsche, and from family Gosner this time it is Thomas Allen.
The 51 car, guys, has just had a bit of tape applied to the right headlight. So something happened. Okay, it went quickest in the first second of qualifying, but there was a little tap somewhere along the line because they've just been taping up the right headlight.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the Alessio Dono car then, that's having some tape applied. As you look at number 25 Audi, yet to go for Santilok. But now it gets the signal and makes its way down the pit lane.
So the pit lane slowly emptying. Benjamin Ricci has jumped on board the number 26 Santilok Audi for this one. So that's the car that was 3rd quickest in the first part of the session when Paul Ivoire did good things at the wheel of the car. The car that was 4th quickest in the hands of James Jakes has now been taken over by Mark Sampson, who moved over from the British GT Championship to race in the GT World Challenge this year, and is just concluding his first year in a McLaren, really, isn't he? He's always sort of hopped from one GT3 car to the other, having won the Silver-Am category in a Bentley, wasn't it, a season or two ago, and then moved to race with the Lamborghini with Barwell Motorsport, where he claimed the championship, and has now raced the McLaren this year. We'll wait and see what his plans are for 2025 in due course. The other Garage 59 car in the hands of Alexander West, another driver that's raced a whole raft of things over the years, whether it be ex-Formula 1 Ferraris through to contemporary GT machines. Yeah,
he came out of the Ferrari Challenge initially, and he's part of Garage 59 in terms of the ownership of it. He's not done that much racing this year, actually, but this is very much his kind of event. You know, he's got lots of track time, without too many, as John Watson would call them, hot rodders or you know, pro drivers, manufacturer drivers. So it's a good environment for him. And Alexander West has always been very quick and is very experienced. So certainly one to watch, that's for sure. 77 Ferrari we're looking at, which is Khalid Al Marzouk at the wheel of it, the Dragon Racing entry, one of the 2 Dragons. And onto an outlap he has gone. The other nice thing about this session, of course, and building up to Q4 is that as we go through the night, it's getting cooler and therefore the engines are less strangled, so they'll be able to really let themselves fly at the end of Q4. Get to happy hour, as it were. So out of the chicane comes our Marzouk, and drivers now starting a proper flying lap. Another one to watch will be number 16 Porsche, Sven Müller. I'm interested that he's been put in this early in the session, but he'll be one to watch, that's for sure. Number 4 Mercedes ready to go, which is going to be one of the Groves, probably Stephen. We'll find out in a moment. The Groves having moved from Porsche to Mercedes AMG for this year after many years of being associated with Porsche machinery. Number 8 there is Alexander West. Yeah, you talked, Mark, about his historic Formula 1 collection. McLarens he has a number of as well, from a given period when they were sponsored by a well-known cigarette brand, which means he has a McLaren with West writ large on the side. It's quite a nice toy to have, isn't it?
Very nice toy to have indeed, yeah. So let's just have a quick look. We started to get some quick sector times coming in, and in the first sector, Sven Müller at the wheel of number 16 Porsche is quickest. In the second sector, it's the number 77 Dragon Racing Ferrari of Khalid Marzouk that is quickest, and in the third sector it's the Racing 1 Ferrari of Marc Rosser that is quickest. But that is largely either on out laps on the first part of flying laps. We'll see how the whole lap strings together. We've briefly got a yellow flag at turn number 9 at the moment though, which is the banked section, which was reprofiled the best part of 3 years ago now. Yellow flag down in that area. So, and that is because the Gosners, I'm afraid, have ground to a halt. So the MP Motorsport Mercedes, which had the problems in the pit lane in part 1 of qualifying, has now stopped out on circuit. Is that a spin coming out of the corner, David?
I would say so, and a stall, but it has fired up again. So Thomas Gosner has got going, but it's not having a happy session, is it, that car? That is for certain. So we are in business then for proper lap times now in this 15-minute segment. Oh, there's damage to the Gosner Mercedes as well on the left front corner. And you can see the damage, you can see it's dragging something along. So yeah, the whole of the inner wheel arch has come loose. There's a puncture as well. So there goes some of the debris. The tyre looks either low or flat, and so Thomas Gosner is going to have to limp to the pit lane. But yeah, bad start, and that suggests that he did hit something or somebody.
Yeah, it makes you wonder whether he'd come out of turn number 9, lit it up on cold tyres, and it snapped round on him over to the left-hand side and made contact with the barriers potentially. It's about the only scenario I could think that is more feasible than anything else there. So he's trying to limp that car back. He has left a bit of debris on line as well, so that will be looked at by the officials as well and established as to whether it is small enough to just be left there or whether we might need to get one of our marshals to get out and clear that out of harm's way. So the Gosners coming back into the pit lane, and that is going to undo some of the work they were hoping to do in this qualifying session in on average time. They're going to be surely down towards the tail end of the field now.
Yes, but I mean, with respect to them, they're in the AM class.
They are, yeah.
So you could argue, so what? Now, Sven Müller has gone half a second quicker than Alessio Dono in Q1. So Sven Müller for Proton Huber competition has done a 1:52.185. Sven Müller has always been an absolute hero in Porsches. He's been a Porsche specialist out of one make championships and GT categories for a long time now. And Sven Müller 1:52.1 then to go fastest in Q2, and another car has ground to a halt, and it's a damaged Ferrari. So that's coming out of turn 4.
That's the number 6 car, is it not?
That's a red flag as well, that's what that is. So that's the session stopped because that car is on the racing line. So the red flag comes out, the clock stops with 8 minutes to go. So this means everybody will head back to the pit lane. When the road is clear, we'll go again. But yes, stranded out on track, and it looked as though that had some damage as well.
It certainly looked as though, yeah, the front left suspension was all at an angle. You can see the nose of the car is lifted up there by the look of things, and whilst we can't see the number of the car, the colours of that to me suggest that that is the number 6 Racing 1 Ferrari.
Marc Rosser.
Marc Rosser. And that car, of course, on average times after the first part of qualifying, was sitting there in second place, wasn't it?
Thanks to Roberto Mehi. Yeah. Right, so everybody needs to get back to the pit lane. Then the road is clear to allow the marshals to go trackside to attend to it. So if you're thinking what's going on, it's not appropriate to have people on track while there are still cars circulating. So once everybody is to the pits, then permission can be given from race control that the marshals can attend. And we'll find out how that car got the damage. So look in the background of the Grove Mercedes, and in fact, oh there, right, so it runs wide and into the corner. It looks like it smoked the barrier, just going way too wide into the corner.
Yeah, that's turn 5, is it not? So probably started at turn 4 and didn't quite gather it up by the time he got to turn 5. And there's a fair chunk of runoff there at turn 5 as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
So that's a long way off track.
Unless, to give Mark Rosser the benefit of the doubt, there was an issue that caused the car to not slow, like a brake or a throttle problem. But you're right, there is a lot of runoff there. The Gosners, meantime, get out of jail free card here, because they can do the work on the car without the clock ticking. So they're not losing too much of the session available time. But there is concern about that car. So the scrutineers are having a look, and Alan is going to join in and offer the benefit of his wisdom as well, I think, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. It's green, that's what you can tell them, Al.
It's beautiful. I mean, the livery is absolutely lovely, and I'm, as you know from previous years of the Lenovo Gulf 12 Hours, I'm very close to the Gosners, and I've already touched base with Manuela in the garage to ask exactly what happened, but she described what you just saw on the screen, that there was a big spin and a fair bit of contact as well, so they're not totally sure what happened, what caused the spin, but there is a fair bit of tape being applied under the bonnet of the car, I'm afraid, at the moment. So this is, as you say, perhaps a good thing that we've got this little break, this little pause here to allow the team to work away, and they are doing exactly that. Thomas is back inside the car and strapped in and seated and ready to go, but the team working on the front left-hand side of the car for now.
Right, thanks, Alan. So the Gosners, I think we've made the point, are regulars at this event, and they come and have to call it a family jolly kind of does them a disservice. They do take it seriously, but it's very much a family event, and normally by the end of the race, the familiar family clothing with the toucan is prevalent as well. Right, I'm piecing all this together, Mark. See if you go with my analysis here. The damage is on the left front, or the suspension problem is on the left front, but it was the right front that hit the barrier. So I would offer you a suspension failure on the left that caused Mark Rosser not to make the corner, and that's where we saw the car glance the barrier with the right, but the broken left, I think, was what pitched him off.
I'd agree with that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good. Right.
Yeah. So the car just wouldn't rotate. If it's broken on that side, then it's going to drop down on that side, which means the right wheel isn't making the contact it needs to make with the tarmac, and off you go.
What he said, Professor Science there has summed it up for you. So I think we've got to the bottom of what happened to Mark Rosser, why it happened. We'll be able to ascertain when that car gets back to the pit lane, but it's going to take a little bit of sorting, because as you saw, they need to jack the car up if there's broken suspension and then get the car retrieved. 58 is the Mercedes that is being allowed back to have repairs. We've covered that, that's all good. So we're just recovering number 6 and then 8 minutes to go. The trouble is, the red flag coming pretty much, give or take, halfway through that session. You've not really been able to get into a proper rhythm. And when you start again, you lose the first 2.5 minutes for an outlap. And so the available time disappears, tyres go cold and all of that. So it's going to be a tough 8 minutes, this.
It is. The pressure will build again, won't it? So on the drivers, they'll feel that pressure. They'll know that they didn't quite get a decent flying lap in before the red flag. You've got to push even harder after the red flag to try and make it up, and then that's when another mistake makes. But hopefully it will all go cleanly as and when we get this incident cleared up. So in that session, the number 17 Proton Huber Motorsport Porsche of Sven Muller was quickest. Second quickest is the car that was off at the moment. This is in terms of average times at this stage. Santalock Audi of Benjamin Ricci at the moment, third quickest on average times. Then it's the number 11 Kessel Racing car, followed by the 8 of Alexander West, and then the 96 Simpson Motorsport Dennis Remignaco car. So those are the top 6 at this stage. Looks as though they've got the car jacked up now, Alan, and are ready to start the recovery, have they? So let's just wait and see. Yeah, here comes the cavalry.
I'm not sure about this. I think they were trying to lift it in tow, and that's not worked. And I think now it's going to have to be a lift and put onto the flatbed. I think it's more serious, that suspension problem, than was anticipated. Why that should have happened, because they're not really high curbs here particularly, is something that we'll need to try and investigate once we are in a position so to do. But all the delay at the moment is to recover Mark Rosser's Ferrari. And as soon as possible, we'll be back in business with a number of drivers like Brenton Grove, Ralph Bowen, Alessandro Giannone, Frederick Schandorf, who should be very quick, and Andrew Gilbert not yet having done a lap time. I think part of the problem, Mark, is there's broken left and now there's damaged right suspension to that car. So it was the broken left that put Mark off, and then the barrier has done the right-hand side. So it is rather sorry for itself, that car.
It does at the front, yeah. So they are going to have to winch that car out of harm's way. And looking at the damage of it, first thing they'll need to do is, even when the car gets back, of course, then we'll start the session. They've still got to do the inspection of what happens, then they need to do the damage assessment, then they need to make sure they get all of the parts, if they're not in the garage, out of the containers that the car have come in. So again, that's another car now that is surely going to be starting from towards the very back of the grid.
Yeah, I would go along with that, and I suspect the Racing One mechanics are those that we can see from our window walking up the pit lane, ready to get to Parc Fermé to receive that car and then try and wheel it back. So Mark Rosser, the good news is he did do a time, so that car has qualified through Q2. Number 44, you can see, waiting to go, is the Neil Muston ARC Bratislava Lamborghini. Neil Muston, who has joined the team for the weekend, the silver-graded driver, and will be a man to watch, I think, once this session gets back underway. Neil having been a regular in sports car racing in Australia, and fighter pilot as well as racing driver, but one to watch.
Former winner of this as well. He did win the Gulf 12 Hours when we used to have the prototype class here, Neil Muston.
Gosh, that's going back a bit.
It was, yeah. It's a few years ago now, but he has won this event overall. But of course, prototype class all gone now for this year. It's just GT3, or of course the introduction of the new Porsche Cup class for this year.
Right, so the winch of the Ferrari continues, and the local officials doing a sterling job to get that sorted. As you can see over at the exit of turn 5. So the Racing One team eager to get the car back, then damage can be assessed, and a long night probably beckons for them. Sven Muller, to nobody's great surprise, then the fastest. Another one to watch when we get back underway is going to be number 11, the Kessel Ferrari that Murat Çuharoglu drove in Q1. Giorgio Roda now at the wheel of that. Giorgio, who was, like quite a few on the grid this weekend, in action last week in Sepang, and qualified on outright pole position for both races in an LMP2 car, so switching from a prototype to a GT car. Very different feel, but still being very, very quick. So Giorgio Roda, second generation racer, will be one to watch. Alan, yes.
I'm just going to see, guys, if I can get a quick word with Thomas Gostner, who is back in the car. Oh dear, this is not the way we wanted to start things. What happened?
Yeah, I was a little bit too fast, and the back started to move, and that was it. Eh?
Oh no, it catches you out, doesn't it?
Unlucky.
Unlucky.
I hope that the race will go on. They can fix the problem. It's not too big, so I'm always optimistic.
As a family, you're always so happy to be here, aren't you? This is a end-of-year family event for you guys.
Yeah, it's a family event. We are so happy, everybody, to be here for my family. It's always the highlight of the year. Eh?
Is it really? You look forward to this all year?
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful to be here. Eh?
Superb, Thomas. And the team are working hard for you. Thank you so much for having a chat to me. Look at the team working down here. If we just get a view of this, they've been, they haven't stopped basically since the car came into pit lane. They've worked under the bonnet. They're now working, as you can see, to tape up the headlight and all sorts of things. But did you see the smile on the face? He's just happy to be here. The family are fantastic, and I'm sure over the course of a 12-hour race tomorrow, we shall speak to each and every one of them over the course of the day.
Well, that is your task, yes. But they are exactly what this event is about.
Absolutely.
You know, AMs come to a great circuit, have lots of track time, enjoy themselves, and go away having had a great time.
I think that what Roberto Merhi said to Alan as well, sort of, his first visit here, but he summed it up beautifully. What a fantastic way to end the year.
Yeah, precisely. And yet it's a hidden gem for Sam, isn't it? Every year we have new teams and new drivers, but it's getting everybody to keep coming back and back and back.
Well, I was chatting to Mark Sampson, who is out in this session driving the number 59 Garage 59 McLaren, and I said, well, you're back this year, Mark. He said, well, I'm back. I want to do some driving this year, because of course he was partnered up with Sean Balfe in the McLaren last year, which had a large accident at, was it turn 1, turn 2, where the car spat him from the outside of the circuit into the barriers on the inside, and Sean ended up damaging some bones in that one. But Mark's back this year, thoroughly looking forward to hopefully getting to grips with his first proper true Gulf 12 hour after the disappointment of last year.
Yeah, and of course the regulations for the last 2 years have been a continuous 12-hour race when it was part of Intercontinental GT Challenge. This year it's a one-off, it's not part of a series or a championship, and we've gone back to that two-part element.
And that helps. You know, if some teams have a problem in the 12-hour race, you lose all of that time. But if you have a problem in the 8-hour race towards the tail end, you can almost negate the fact that that problem has occurred, because when we get that 2-hour break between part 1 and part 2, the cars for most of that period of time aren't in parc fermé.
Yeah, it's a free pit stop, isn't it?
The teams can work on the cars. It's a free pit stop, yeah, to repair the car.
You've just seen the clock with 8 minutes and 7 seconds still shown, and the recovery team are still striving to get the Ferrari out of the way. I think it's now on the back of the flatbed, so that'll be then moved onto the truck itself, and then the road will be clear. These cars, especially when they've got a suspension problem, take longer to move than you would have thought. And the W Hotel shimmering over the circuit, changing colour every 5 seconds or so, and appropriately for Porsche, it's a Porsche fastest at the moment. Sven Muller by a good half a second or so compared to Alessio Dono's time, but all Porsche fans in the pit lane.
Yeah, so at the moment the Porsche, Ferrari, Audi, Ferrari, McLaren, Audi, Porsche would be the top 6 or top 7 at the moment on combined times. And as for the car that is leading the Cup category at the moment, it's the number 91 QMMF by HRT Performance car of Ibrahim Ali Al Abdullaghani. So that would be the fastest of the Cup cars at this stage. So hopefully, estimated restart is in about 5 more minutes' time, so at about 10 to 8 local time here in the UAE is when we are hoping to get things back underway, and that is about 5 minutes from now. So the marshals, the recovery crews will all be in contact with the enormous team there in race control, and as soon as the circuit is clear, all the vehicles are off it, marshals are ready to go, we'll start to see the indication that the fast lane is open and the cars can begin to trickle back down there again. But as you alluded to, David, you know, they've got to get on with it now.
Yeah, pressure's on, and effectively it becomes, you know, a 6-minute session, I guess, because once you've taken that outlap out of the equation, you haven't got that many to do. And there might be some teams who feel, well, actually, we've got a time. We're not going to want to stay out to the checkered flag because we want to be in early and get the next driver in. So how they play these remaining minutes will be quite interesting. Sven Muller then the fastest. He's done a 152.1. Mark Rosser before his problem was second, 155.4 in the average. But Giorgio Roda second fastest by way of a lap time in Q2 alone, a 153.525. So another, as I was saying, another quick driver. And 4 more minutes, give or take. It is taking a long time to move that Ferrari, but in fairness, with 2 damaged front corners to it, it was always going to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they've done the right thing rather than sort of high a bit onto the flatbed, which probably takes longer for them to bring out all the equipment that they need to do that and make all the correct connections to the fixing points on the roof to haul that car out of the way. As both front suspension is damaged, then winch it backwards onto the flatbed, and that way the wheels will sort of find their own point that they're happy at sitting. Alan, I think has more news down there in the pit lane?
Well, we do. I thought we've got opportunity, a couple of minutes to maybe have a chat to, well, I've bumped into somebody that I know from racing in the UK. Adam Smalley, your first visit here. What do you make of it so far?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience to be here. As you mentioned, first time, and we've about 10, 15 laps so far in practice.
I was going to say, it's been a lot of free practice today. How have you only managed 10 laps? You have to share it out.
I've done a little bit more, but you know, the majority of this is down to the AM drivers, especially having 2 in the car. They're the biggest deciding factor in this race. So giving those guys most of the time. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Obviously a privilege to be here and a great way to round the year out.
It was only a few years ago, I think I had a chat to you and you weren't sure where you were going next, and the upward trajectory of your career has just gone amazingly over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. Yeah, I've won 4 British titles now. Having won Porsche Carrera Cup GB last year, I kept my silver status and then thought, you know, I'll go GT racing with it. And you know, to win British GT silver, I'm in my first season, finished 3rd overall, have 3 pole positions in a GT World Challenge has been incredible. So
what better way to finish the year just before Christmas than to come out for a few days away by the marina, staying here in Abu Dhabi? It's a bit of a dream, isn't it? Do you sometimes look back at the last few years and think, wow, this is what's happened to me.
Yeah, to be honest, you know my position better than anyone. You know how hard it was for me to go racing, to find the money to do so, and to be stood here now against the world's best drivers is a surreal feeling. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving every minute of it, and yeah, fingers crossed we can continue the dream.
So it's the end of one year and about to go into the start of another year. Do you know what you're doing next year yet?
No, not just yet. A few little ideas, but the main focus is enjoying this weekend, maximising this. We've got some good opportunities, but yeah, we'll see how this weekend goes and hopefully end it on a high, and then yeah, full focus on 2025.
Adam, I don't know if you've ever watched this broadcast before of the Lenovo Gulf 12 Hours, but I tend to speak to quite a few people that I know from racing in the UK. So be prepared tomorrow for me to be an annoyance.
Yeah, come over whenever. Looking forward to it.
Top man, Adam. Thank you very much indeed. Adam Smalley down here in pit lane. I think we're going.
We are almost ready to do so, Alan. You're quite right. A minute and a quarter away from the green light going on at the end of the pit lane. That was quite a diplomatic answer from Adam, wasn't it, about next year? But he and Garage 59 have been a good fit this season, that's for sure. Right, so quick reminder, Sven Muller is fastest in Q2, and at the moment, because that's the only lap time, it's on a notional pole position. But until we get Q3 and Q4 factored in, we can't really know for sure where that car is going to be. And we're into about the last 50 seconds or so before things are underway. It's still quite a few, Mark, like the Grove Mercedes, Ralph Bowen's Porsche, the Porsche of Alessandro Giannone, the McLaren of Frederick Schandorf, and Andrew Gilbert's Ferrari, not having been able to do a lap before the red came out.
No, absolutely, and those are cars that all have 3 drivers in, so we didn't see them in Q1 either, because the car wasn't eligible to go out in Q1, and yeah, in Q2 they are still as yet to set a time. So we're talking about pressure being on. Well, for those cars, as you say, Brendan Grove, Ralph Bowen, Alessandro Giannone, Frederick Schandorf, and Andrew Gilbert, they have got to get on with it. Try and get towards the front of the queue if they can out of pit lane rather than the back of the queue, and then yeah, you've still got that 2-minute out lap. Even if you're at the front, if you're at the back, it's probably going to be 3 minutes from when we go green before you start a flying lap.
I mean, you can argue in a case, why sit in the middle of the queue? Let everyone go and then join in at the back with no traffic around you. Trouble is, though, you've only got half the session. Yep. So you do want to be out early now to try and make sure you can squeeze one more lap out of this session before we get to the checkered flag, which is now 7 3/4 minutes away, because time rattles through and you forget, you know, it's 5.2 kilometres long this, or if you take the Mark Werrell line on your run, 5.3 kilometres. And it's a long lap, especially an out lap, so it's going to have to be a pretty quick out lap to try and maximise what you've got left.
Yep, and I think that's why we're already seeing on this out lap even some drivers pressing on. So Giorgio Roda, who you mentioned, is going to be a factor in this aspect of Q2, trying to get on with it straight away. Quick out lap, and if he gets a quick out lap, there is a possibility if it's a really quick out lap, he can get 3 flying laps in if he wants to.
Possibly, yeah. See, I mean, the drivers will know on the Delta whether they're up or down, and whether that last lap is worth persevering with. 25 Audi this time around is for the Chinese driver Zhou Bi Hang, and he is a driver who has won the China GT Championship in the past. Carrera Cup Asia racer. He's racing Carrera Cup Middle East, Asian Le Mans Series. So he's another experienced peddler, is Zhou Bi Huang. And we've got 6 minutes, just over 6.5 minutes. The Gosners are on the way. Thomas Gosner rather gently making his way down the pit lane compared to some. And the Sven Muller Porsche parked. I think Sven has said, right, that's it, I've done a lap, we're fine. And there's another one that's not going back out, which is Axel Sartingen's Porsche. Likewise, that's up on its jacks, ready for Q3. I don't think we need to panic about either of those Porsches, but it's interesting that they're prepared to just take that time and get ready for Q3.
Yeah, I suppose, subject to what they thought their ultimate time could be. If they've stitched the lap together and you're only going to be chipping away at a few thousandths, it's not going to make a great deal of difference in the average qualification time across the 3 or the 4 drivers that you've got, and therefore it won't really affect where you're going to line up on the grid for what is a 12-hour race anyway. Is it worth it? Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So Brenton Grove on his out lap, letting some of the traffic go. Brenton Grove coming down towards turn 16 at the end of the lap. Right, 51 Ferrari goes through, and who we put into that now? Giorgio Senagiotto, who is another very experienced Ferrari racer. Brenton Grove working his way up towards turn 4. Audi 25 has gone by, so Joby Huang goes through. And there's a line speed Porsche off the road there by the look of it, which was way, way off the road, yes. It's heading back towards the circuit. Now, who was at the wheel of 88? Who did we put into that? Gabriel Rindone in the line speed car. So he's got it going again after a moment, but it still looks a bit nervy, that car. Gabriel, I can't think I've seen in a Porsche before, normally Lamborghinis, but he's had a big, big lose, hasn't he, coming out of turns 3 to 4 there. Yeah,
and that was where we saw a big lose for one of the Porsches in qualifying last year, wasn't it, if memory serves me correctly, which caused a fair chunk of damage to the barriers on that occasion. But yeah, it's a fast part of the circuit. That's where you get the elevation change as well, don't you, which means that for a period of time the car will be that little bit lighter as it comes over the crest, and it's a very fast flowing section as well through turn 1 to turn 2, turn 3, and that clearly just caught out the line speed Gabriel Rindone car. So thankfully no damage done. Maybe a bit of flat spotting done with that big spin. So we'll have to see if that affects the remainder of the session for that car. And a big laundry bill as well. You're looking at number 96 of Denis Romaniaco, and we've got Frederic Schandorf's McLaren, the Optimum car, having done the absolute best in Sector 1 now. Frederic Schandorf, who's another rather underrated driver, specialised initially in Lamborghinis, but when he hooked up with Optimum and Brendan Arieb a few years ago, was winner of the Gold Cup in World Challenge Europe Endurance. Now, what can Denis Romaniaco do as he comes then up towards the chicane out of turns 6 and 7? We've now got Giorgio Senagiotto up to second on the average. You've got Brenton Grove up to third on the average. So the order now is happily shuffling away, but I still think that Frederic Schandorf, when he goes through, is going to put the McLaren up towards the top of the times, or very close to the top of the times. He is into the third sector now, so the Optimum McLaren will be the next one to watch. The team managed by former racer Bas Leinders, the Belgian. Over the timing line goes Audi number 25. Romaniaco is still hustling on towards the end of the lap then in number 96 Audi as he threads his way past and then underneath the W Hotel. And Schandorf goes second then, so he's about, what, just under 2/10 shy of Sven Muller on a 1:52.350. Yep, so that is the first lap that car has put in, because we didn't see it out in Q1 because it's one of the cars that's just got 3 drivers in, as with Sven Muller as well. Giorgio Senagiotto moves his way up through the order. We've got less than 3 minutes remaining for this one as well. So Senagiotto for the number 51 Ferrari. AF Corsa goes third quickest. 2C's Motorsport, Brendan Grove, you picked up on him early on in the lap at the wheel of the Mercedes. Well, he has just now gone fourth quickest at the wheel of the number 4 car. So 1 minute 53.3 exactly for that one. Ralph Bone at the wheel of his Porsche for Herbert Motorsport. The number 7 car is 5th, and 6th at the moment is the Santaloc Audi in the hands of Benjamin Ricci. That's the number 26 car. Neil Muston still looking to press on with the ARV Bratislava Lamborghini. That's the car that was damaged in free practice 3, and that Lamborghini at the moment needs to try and improve. He's on a reasonable lap, but it's rather languishing down in 20th position at the moment. But it is, after all, a GT3 AM car. Giorgio Roda through, but not improving with traffic all around him. Number 74 Ferrari, Andrew Gilbert, has just done a proper lap, a 1:55.524 then, to put the Kessel car 12th. And the flag is imminent, as Mark says. We are into the final few minutes, and we're now, in fact, just over 90 seconds away from the checkered flag. So the Proton Hubert competition Porsche number 16 remains the fastest, but I fear, with respect to Sergei Stolyarov and Sergei Borisov, that will drop down through Qs 3 and 4. Because Sven Muller is away and above the real star in that car. Still little bits of damage you can see scraping on the ground of the MP Racing Gosner family Mercedes. Just see those little sparks coming off it as the front was loaded up under braking. Thomas Gosner still pressing on with the lap. That car still remains slowest of the 24 that we've got out there, and even the sector times this time through don't suggest that Mercedes is going to improve. I suspect the damage that was inflicted on it is still meaning that car isn't quite 100%. When you gaffer take things up and you've still got damage to the front splitter and you've ripped out some of the wheel arch as well, it's never quite going to handle the same, is it? No, and you're absolutely right. Again, sparks fly, but for the Gosners, it's about keeping out of trouble and enjoying
the race, isn't it? You know, they're in the AM Cup. Even the AM Cup is very, very competitive. So they just got to get it to the end.
Yeah, and not hopefully not doing them a disservice, but you know they were never going to be starting at the front of the grid anyway.
No.
They were going to be towards the back, and they know they can repair the car overnight. So they're all good to go tomorrow. They're in a good place still.
Exactly right. So what they don't want is a damaged car today that's going to give them strife tomorrow. Frederick Schandorf still pushing on. The Gosners go through. Now, number 69 McLaren then is the one to watch. And coming into the last sector is Schandorf. The flag is out, so Frederick Schandorf finding traffic all around him. If the deltas look promising, no, he's down in the middle sector. So let's see whether or not he is going to get to the timing line on the track or in the pit lane. One or two bail early, such as Giorgio Roda's Kessel Ferrari. There is the Optimum McLaren, and then number 69 Frederick Schandorf turning his way past the bar at the W Hotel, underneath the bridge that takes you to the gym, and then back the other side past the marina, and in about 2 corners time, Mark will discover whether he's going to box or whether he's going to go for a time.
Here he comes up towards the penultimate corner. It looks as though he's staying with the lap. The body language of the car would tell you so. Hooks up the final corner, starts to accelerate his way over the start-finish line. Fastest of all through the first sector, gave a bit of time way through the second, and fastest of all through the third sector. Frederick Schandorf sets a time that at the moment the average times for the cars that have appeared in either Q1 and Q2, or just Q2 in the case of the 3 driver teams, sees that car top of the times at the moment. The number 69 McLaren, Frederick Schandorf, 1 minute 52.180. That's only 5/1000ths of a second quicker, though, than Sven Muller managed at the wheel of the Porsche, so it all looks rather close.
And that's despite losing time in the middle sector. So there's more in that car. There's more in Schandorf, isn't there? Might only be another 10th or so, but as you say, he did drop a little bit of time in Sector 2.
You could argue nearly towards 2/10 of a second compared to what others have done.
Yeah. So that brings to an end Q2. We have about 9 minutes, give or take, before we are in business for Q3. So race control, cognizant of the fact there's another race to come at the end of the evening, not just qualifying for these cars, but the F4 cars for the Formula Trophy. They've got race 2 to come. So they're just trying to nudge things along, having lost that chunk of time recovering Mark Ross's Ferrari. Thomas Gosner, in the meantime, breaks the beam as he goes through to take the checkered flag, and that lap's an improvement for Gosner. So thankfully all seems good there. Alan.
I've got Sven Muller down here with me.
Hooray.
About a minute and a half before the end of qualifying, I said, shall we leave it until the end of qualifying? And you said to me, anything can happen. And unfortunately it did.
Yes, it was super tight. 5,000 for sure, it was in it. I mean, it was quite a good lap. After one lap, putting everything together, so I was quite happy with the lap. So we decided to stop the car and save the tires.
I was going to say, that was a pretty cool thing to do, to leave the car, let it cool down.
Yes, exactly. And then going again into the run, tires not an optimum. You have more mileage on the tire. That's why we said, okay, we're going to stop and see what happened. 5,000's really tight, everything. So I think it's going to be an interesting race tomorrow if we see it's already tight like that. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
It's a unique event, this, isn't it? There's nothing else quite like it, is there?
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, also the track, Abu Dhabi, is really the surrounding, everything. It's really cool. We enjoy. We had some good, a lot of running time today, so we could optimize everything with my new teammates. So yeah, now it's their turn in qualifying. I think we're a good package. Car was really amazing, so really a pleasure to drive this 1 push lap or 1.5 push lap. So yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Sven, when we're looking at the entry list this weekend, it is so very difficult to predict what is going to happen over the course of 12 hours tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's 12 hours. You see now in the qualifying, some spins, some little crashes. I think it's going to be an interesting race, and for sure you need to survive. Track limits here is also a big problem, or a big deal to really take care of. Yeah, it's like, for example, in 4 hours, 3 track limits for all drivers. So it's really hard. The stewards are really strict, but that's how we like.
Thank you so much for talking to us, and I'll tell people what you said. When the checkered flag went out, you said, do you still want me? Yes, of course we do.
Yes, so looking forward to speak to you tomorrow again.
Oh, there'll be plenty of opportunities. Sven, thank you very much indeed. Sven Muller, top bloke. He came back, he had a smile on his face. Naturally a little bit disappointed that he was pipped at the post, but he said, do you still want me?
Well, teams want him as well, Alan, don't they? Because with a great pedigree in Porsches, he's always been in demand. I mean, he is one of those turnkey drivers that you drop him into a Porsche, or in the case of other drivers of a similar vein, put them into their specialist manufacturer, and they just deliver. He's a real star.
You don't win the Porsche Super Cup and the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany unless you're quick.
No, precisely. And with Retronic Racing this year, he's been one of the stars of World Challenge Europe, plus racing Porsches elsewhere. So now, if you take the fact that for some cars we've had one and others we've had two drivers, it's Frederick Scharntorf with his efforts that he's now fastest by 5 thousandths from Sven Muller. Last driver in 51 Ferrari to be third on average was Giorgio Senna. Giotto. Mark Rosser, despite the damage, that car number 6 Ferrari fourth. Brenton Grove on his own so far fifth. Giorgio Roda's Ferrari sixth ahead of Ralph Bowen. That's a solo effort thus far. Benjamin Ricci next, Renat Salikov and Mark Sanson rounding out the top 10. Right, same cars. Change driver, we're good to go again. Alan? No, not yet. 15 more minutes for Q3. Not yet. And 15 minutes for this third part of the qualifying session. And now where for the three driver cars, we are going to get a proper idea of mixed pace. The average is going to shuffle again, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to see, again, a range of different drivers coming out, everybody trying to push to do their ultimate best that they can do, but also conscious of the fact that they want to try and chip away at that average time if they can, subject to which drivers they're putting in. So all of the teams did notify all of the officials as to what the order would be. Most of them, you would imagine, will probably save the gold and the platinum graded drivers where they have them in their teams, in the case of the Pro and the Pro-Am cars, for the final session, I would have thought.
Well, yeah, except we've just seen Sven Muller and Frederick Scharntorf go. That slightly puzzles me.
Yeah.
Whether it's felt that when the car is lighter, it's more user-friendly for the bronze, discuss. But anyway, that is the way it's panned out, and that helps to give us so far an interesting order. Teams getting ready. Kessel Racing, then their cars are currently to be found 8th on the average and 12th. So. At 20:08 we will be in business, and it's coming up to 20:05, just 2 or 3 more seconds before the clock nudges 8:05 now, and so very shortly the fast lane will be open. There's also a pit lane infringement for number 92 Porsche that has been noted for the Yassim Altani, Ahmad El Ahmadi, Axel Sartingen, Liang Jiatong Porsche that runs in the Cup class, so that's being looked at by the stewards as well.
That's the car that is slowest of the 24, isn't it, so far in average time? So the average time for that car, 2 minutes 1.625. It wasn't slowest for most of the session, because what happened at the top of the order towards the end of that session also happened at the bottom of the order towards the end of that session, didn't he? With the time that was put in by the Gosner number 58 Mercedes, also hauling it from 24th to 23rd on average times, which now dropped that number 92 Porsche towards the tail end. So we are now about 2 minutes away from seeing the green flag to get our next 15-minute aspect of qualifying underway. As David suggested, all of the cars now serviced, all of them no doubt with a new set of Pirelli boots on and ready to go. And Alan Hyde is down there in the pit lane. No, he's not quite.
Well, Alan's microphone likes talking to us, but it's got a mind of its own, I think. So Casper Stevenson for the Haas RT team will go number 2. Stephen Grove, Ernst Kirkmeyer, Dustin Blackner, Adam Smalley this time around, David Firminelli, Dennis Marshall, Michael Blanchemin amongst others, Marco Pulcini, Nürburgring 24-hour winner of years past, Felipe Lazer. So you've got some quick people in this. Wayne Boyd as well, that we shouldn't ignore, and Tanat Satran-Tirakul, who was the Silver Cup winner in endurance in World Challenge Europe this year. So again, some good names, big names, ready to take on the challenge of the Yas Marina Circuit. And the fast lane is open, and we are about a minute away from that green light going on at the end of pit lane. Nobody in a tearing hurry to get to the lights, are they, at the end of the pit road? But the tires go on. The Pirelli rubber adorning the cars now.
So who's your money on still then? Still the same?
For what, for the win? For pole?
For pole. Or for the win?
Gosh.
For pole.
Pole, I've got no idea.
Yeah.
Probably the Grove Mercedes. I just think that that's probably the gun car. But if it's not Grove, it'll be Santalot. But then it might be Kessel. I mean, it is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more you look, the more you think, well, actually, no, because so much of it is going to come down to how much time the bronzes have to do. And in the Pro car, where you've got one bronze, it's only 3 hours. which might help. Whereas in a Pro-Am car, if you've got 2 bronzes, that's 6 hours worth of bronze time. But then, is it a dull bronze or a shiny bronze?
Yeah.
Ask me again at the end of tomorrow night.
Who have you got, Alan?
Fred Chandhoff is down here with me. He's been terribly patient waiting for the camera crew to get down here. You had to be patient in qualifying as well because you didn't get too many laps in before the red flag went out.
No, unfortunately, we didn't even get a lap out. It just went out on the out lap, and then the red flag came. So we had to box, and then I knew it's going to be a little bit tight in the end to actually make a lap, also to make a clear lap. So I just managed the very last lap just to beat Sven with like 5,000 of a second. So it was pretty cool and really nice experience. You could hear the team shouting in the radio when I crossed the finish line, so it was pretty cool.
It's like a first win of the weekend, isn't it?
It's a small one. I mean, obviously it's tomorrow is counting, so obviously that's what we have been preparing for. So this is obviously great that hopefully we can be in a good end and have a clean race from there.
I'm quite keen to know because we as a team come out to this event at the end of the calendar year, just before Christmas, and it's a bit of a treat for us. What about for a driver? Is it a bit of a treat for you too?
I mean, I really love my job. I'm super lucky to do what I'm doing this for a living. So obviously I think this is like an extra bit of sweetness here in this weekend. I mean, the facilities are amazing. We've just been here after Formula One, so there's a lot of good rubber in the circuit, so it's really good.
Yeah, it is an incredible circuit to drive. Did you get an awful lot of running during free practice today? How many laps?
We got plenty of laps. I think the format here has been very busy because there's been actually a lot of driving time. So
it's a long day, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's been really good for our bronze driver Todd, so he can get the hang of the car and the circuit, and also for Aaron, it's the first time here. So I'm just really glad I can be here to support them, and hopefully we're going to have a victory tomorrow.
Fred, well done. Thank you very much for being patient and waiting for us. Thank you so much down here in the pit lane. The next segment of qualifying is already underway.
Alan, thanks. 13 minutes on the clock then, because the pit lane has been emptying, the clock's been ticking, and slowly but surely cars are being persuaded down the pit lane. Partly, I think, the way that they are leaving the pits is to make sure there's a bit of daylight between them and the car ahead. Nobody really wanting to get caught in traffic. But the more you stagger your departure, the more you will be in traffic, because here come cars onto a flying lap.
Yep, absolutely. And the first of those to head on to the flying lap is Marco Pulcini at the wheel of the number 51 Ferrari. So he is already starting to turn his way out of turn 1 through the sweeping corners at turn 2 and over the crest at turn number 3. He is, however, now starting to catch a little bit of that traffic that has only just come out of the pit lane that ideally he wants to try and get past before he gets into the braking area at turn number 5. A flash of the lights, a dive to the inside decisively to make sure that he gets through and past David Fumancelli, who is more than experienced here in the Gulf 12 hours, so that has been dealt with. And it does mean that that first sector time wasn't overly compromised by the traffic. But once we've got some pushing out on circuit, we've still got a few stragglers in the pit lane yet to join.
Yeah, including number 2 Audi then, which should now be Casper Stevenson, I think we put into that car. 96 Audi, which is the Simpson Motorsport car, now has the experienced Mikhail Loboda at the wheel of it, normally in GT4 machinery, but Mikhail Loboda knows his way around a GT car, that is for sure. And we'll start to see at the end of this next lap times being offered up. So number 51 Ferrari, Marco Pulcini at the wheel of it, is the one doing purple's early doors. He's the first man on the flying lap really through the sectors of note, so that's why he's looking good, but he's probably going to be one of the standouts in this session. Wayne Boyd will be another one to keep an eye on, and Dennis Marshall as well for Santalok. Now, Dennis knows Audis, but I'm struggling to think of him as a Santalok driver. He's raced for the Attempto Racing Squad in the past, and he's been in Retronic Porsches this year. But was it here last year or 2 years ago that Dennis had an off coming out of turn 2 when he was with an Audi, and was honest enough to hold up his hands when Alan spoke to him and said, no, it was my mistake. But Dennis Marshall, another very, very quick driver. Still a bit underrated maybe, but he'll be one to watch for Santalok in the white and the silver combination of cars that they have. And flying lap offered up straight away by Pulcini, and he's done a 1:53.6.
Yeah, and that with still a little bit of traffic to overtake on that lap. 1 minute 53.627, the fastest so far in this session, but average times, that still sees that car third quickest at the moment. But of course we've got all of the other times to come in from all of the other drivers to recalculate those average times in the meantime. So the order, as you say, will shuffle ever more through, I think probably more through this session than any of the ones we've seen so far.
Potentially so, yeah, as there, number 55, the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari turns through. Now that, remember, was the one we got a bit concerned about early on with Christian Hook bringing it back rather slowly. Felipe Fernandez-Lazer at the wheel a bit. Now he was the winner of last year's Nürburgring 24 Hours in a Ferrari, the Fricadelli Racing Ferrari, and Lazer is very much a Nürburgring specialist, Nordschleife specialist, but very, very quick no matter where you put him. Again, perhaps he doesn't really get the credit he deserves. Well, he might well do come the end of this session. So Felipe Lazer has gone fastest in this part of the qualifying session and brings the Ferrari up to 8th on the average. As you look next at number 4, Stephen Grove, senior, behind the wheel of the 2Cs run Mercedes.
Yeah, and this is another one you were suggesting we need to watch out for as the sessions build. So he's in for what is only the second session that we've seen that car out in, because that's a car that just has the 3 drivers within it. As for Felipe Fernandez-Lazer, his first sector on this lap, not quite as quick as he's done previously. It's the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari of David Fumanelli that we need to keep an eye on at the moment, because Fumanelli, absolute best through the first sector at the wheel of the Ferrari, the number 11 car, absolute best through the second sector. He's in sector 3 as things currently stand, and will be flashing his way over the start-finish line in probably around about 15 seconds time. So he should be coming up to the final corner, and in fact has already gone through and has gone 6th quickest in terms of average times, but has gone fastest in this session with a 1 minute 51.271,
which is way better than we were predicting, because we were thinking a high 151. Well, he's absolutely taken that bar and broken it in two, hasn't he? A low 51 now. So could we in Q4 be getting the likes of Jules Gounon, for example, into the high 1 minute 50s? All of a sudden the expectation has changed a little bit. That red flag, of course, has pushed qualifying a bit later to a ever so slightly a drop in temperature, probably a degree, but it all helps a little bit. But David Fumanelli, as anticipated, a mighty effort, and he's not done yet, Mark, because he's done an absolute best in sector 1 on his next lap.
He absolutely has, yeah. So turning his way at the moment through the twists and turns at turn 6, then turn 7, you get the small kink at turn number 8, but that's absolutely flat out as you head down the straight that brings you up towards the bank section at turn number 9. So there won't be that much braking into turn number 9, and you can sort of carry a bit more speed into that banking than you otherwise would do if it were a flat corner. You'd be coming up to the end of sector 2 before too much longer as well, and thankfully the traffic moved out of harm's way, but it did cost him a very small amount of time through sector 2, but not much. That's still not a bad sector 2 time for David Fumanelli at the wheel of the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari.
It was Manuela Gosner that he had to dodge past, but all done, all good. And so, yeah, Fumanelli has dropped a little bit of time, but he's still way up on others, isn't he? So it's still got the potential to be a good lap this for the Kessel Ferrari. One of arguably the top 2 Ferrari teams. Kessel and AF Corsa, very, very accomplished both. And Kessel with a good track record as a team in this event. We talk about Davide Rigon as a driver, but Kessel as a team has got a great track record. Over the timing line then has gone number 11. That lap was a 53.2, so a little bit more time lost actually in the third sector as well. So maybe we've seen the best out of David Fumanelli. Goes up towards turn 3 now. 91 Porsche a little bit late across the line, but Ghanim Salah Al Madhid goes by and lost about a second, I think, on that lap. 77 Ferrari is next. Razem Azam, whose father was one of the founders of the Dubai Autodrome, Simon Azam. And the session now with 6.5 minutes still on the clock.
Yep, so 6.5 minutes of the session still to go. Still plenty of time for yet some further shuffling of the order. But for David Fumanelli, he's not given up as yet. Absolute best through the first sector. Again, this time through, 23.306 seconds from him. Still keeping an eye on what's going on with the number 58 MP Racing Mercedes as well. You can see those sparks coming out from the front end of Manuela Gosner's car. But David Fumanelli has been very quick through the first sector. He's being chased around the circuit by the... Well, he is chasing, I should say, around the circuit the AF Corsa Marco Pulcini driven Ferrari. Again, second sector David Fumanelli giving away a little bit of time, but again, that's still probably only relative to the sector time that he did last time through. 46.6 seconds is still a good time through that middle sector, and that's exactly what he's done this time through, but not quite as quick as he's previously done.
And that car currently 5th, now make it 4th on the average. So David Fuminelli fourth on the average of the drivers thus far, with just over 5 minutes to go. Still number 69, McLaren is at the top. It is Aaron Talitz who is now behind the wheel of that car. Fuminelli up towards the timing line, breaks the beam, a 1:56.717 then, and that actually drops him back down to 5th.
Yeah, backed it off quite substantively, didn't he, through the final sector. So very quick through the first sector. Didn't give that much time away through the second, but backed it off through the third. In the pit lane is the number 42 Toro Verde GT Porsche of Stephen Leclerc, who is back for another run at the Gulf 12 Hours, the Dubai-based driver nowadays, who we've seen racing in Porsche Carrera Cup, did a little bit of Lamborghini Super Trofeo racing, first cut his teeth in the Mini Challenge in the UK, the best part of 20 or so years ago.
Is it that long? Crikey.
It is, it's a long time ago now.
That's scary. Actually, going off on another tangent, you do forget how old the new shape, in quotes, Mini is, don't you?
Yeah.
Been around a long, long time. The fact that Mark knows that it was 20 years ago proves that Mark was commentating 20 years ago on him, which means Mark's very old. No, I'm being unfair. Way out wide there goes 77 Ferrari, does it not? That is Ramez Azam coming out of turn 5. And the team manager of the number 92 Q80 HRT Porsche being summoned to the race director at the end of the session, so there's been an infringement potentially for number 92 Porsche. Now, Stephen Grove has got the Mercedes up to 7th on the average, and his last lap was a good one, a 55-1, a personal best, bookended by improved sectors, and we're riding on board here with the Mercedes. This is the run down to turn 5.
It is, so heavy onto the brakes down towards turn 5, try and hook up the apex, but get cleanly off the exit, critical corner, turn 5. Because, of course, if you can get cleanly off the exit, you carry all of that speed, all of that momentum down the big, long straight into the heavy braking area for the left, and then the right flick at turn number 6 and turn number 7. You can see the speeds building all of the time, and despite the fact that we are in total darkness, once you go outside of the illuminations of the circuit, you just see the good visibility and how staggeringly good the lighting is around this Yas Marina venue. Picks up and hooks up the apexes through turn 6 and turn 7, and again, that is another critical area, because you've got to get cleanly out of that and carry instantly the speed through the flat-out kink at turn number 8 and all the way down in towards the braking area for the slightly banked turn number 9. How is the lap coming together for Stephen Grove? Well, he is slightly slower through the first sector than he's previously gone. He's slightly slower through the second sector than he's previously gone. And with 2 3/4 minutes to go, is he going to bail on this lap, or is he going to push for one final lap? We're about to find out. He's on the commit line very shortly, coming up towards what will be pit lane entry. As and when he's gone under the W Hotel, he's only got 2 more right-handers to do, and then he'll decide as to whether he's going to pit, whether he's going to stick with another lap. And on that lap, even through sector 3, if it was coming together, he had a little bit of traffic to deal with, didn't he? The Bratislava Lamborghini. He's going to have another go, David.
He is, and he's got time on his side. We've had a report of a spin for Bashar Mardini, number 99, in the Lion Speed Porsche. It's second spin of the session, because Gabriel Rindon had a big lose, didn't he, coming out of turn 3 a little bit earlier on. So Stephen Grove goes by. That lap was slower, but he will be able to get one more, and again, it could be that at the end of this he brings it into the pit lane rather than taking the flag on the track. Right, 77 has bailed early. That is Ramez Azam into the pits. That's the car that Axel Jeffries will drive in Q4, the Zimbabwean driver. But right now it is 69 with Frederick Schandorf's efforts, followed by Aaron Tellitz. Tellitz has done a 52.5, and Schandorf did a 52.1. Now that's pretty encouraging. 4 tenths only between them. Aaron Tellitz doing a very, very impressive job there. Very much so.
So Aaron Tellitz is, I think he's gold rated, isn't he? So of a similar quality in terms of the FIA ratings to Frederick Schandorf. So good from them both so far. Still, of course, the American driver Todd Coleman, the bronze, the AM, to drop into that car for part 3 of the session. So again, no disrespect to Todd, but that car is likely to potentially be under pressure for the fastest average time.
But it's 3 drivers in that car. He's only got Todd Coleman in the race. He's only got to do 3 hours. Now you've got 2 very quick, evenly matched drivers to do the other 9 hours. All right, that's a lot of heavy lifting, but that I think is going to be a competitive car.
And that's one we hadn't mentioned when we were trying to go through all the other possibilities, so we can also now stick that one in the mix.
Precisely. Right, flag's imminent, just over half a minute to the end of Q3. Then we'll have that little break, get the fastest, get the final driver, in many cases the fastest driver into the cars. How's Adam Smalley got on? We heard from him. He's done a 152.2, which is provisionally about the second fastest time in this part of the session, isn't it? A 51.2 for Fuminelli, and then I think Adam Smalley is the next fastest. Number 7 Porsche, which is Dustin Blattner. He's done a 52.8 as his best. You're looking at the Herbeth car now, making his way up to the checkered flag. So a very shiny bronze driver is Dustin Blattner. He's another that will get recategorised for next season. But for Herbeth Motorsport, that car of Ralph Bowen, of Dustin Blattner and Alfred Renau to run in the AM class sort of does them a disservice. He'll come into the pit lane. They're all pretty accomplished drivers. That, you would think, is not only odds on for the AM category, but a very good result overall as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's certainly got a good batch of drivers in that car. So they're running 4th overall on average times at the moment, with 2 of their 3 drivers having qualified. The car that is fastest, that has had drivers appear in each one of the sessions so far, is currently 3rd quickest, isn't it? Number 51 car, Marco Pulcini in the AF Corsa Ferrari. That is a car that runs in the Pro-Am category at this stage. Checkered flag is now out, and we'll just wait for the final few cars to trickle their way over the start-finish line, for which I don't think there are many more now. I think most of the others have opted to come into the pits. We've certainly still got to take the checkered flag. 2C's Motorsport and Stephen Grove. Simpson Motorsport, Mikhail Laboda still to take the checkered flag. Miguel Ramos still to take the checkered flag at the wheel of the number 59 McLaren. Casper Stevenson, and who else still to take the checkered flag? Andrea Girondi still to take the checkered flag at this stage. Some of them bailing for the pit lane, which includes one of the Audis just trickling its way in, which was the Simpson Motorsport car of Mikhail Laboda. So he's not going to continue with the final lap.
But there is one being ever so heroic coming down to turn 16 around the outside of traffic, and that was Audi number 2 of Casper Stevenson. And his last lap, I think, was an improvement, wasn't it? A 152.900. So Casper Stevenson's energy paid dividends into the last corner.
Did it alter his position? I didn't see
as to
whether it did alter
no.
the average position of that car. So it's still on average time 17th quickest at the moment. So cars starting to go back into the pit lane, and anybody that's now just heading round the track will be on their in lap in reality.
And while we've been talking about the order shuffling with more drivers being put into cars, there's one car that's doing the reverse, because of course number 6 is now having to rely on the average of only 2 drivers, because it's not done a Q3 time and may not do a Q4 with the damage done for Mark Ross's Ferrari. So we've got to factor that in as well, that you've only got 2 times for its average rather than 4, which it should have had.
Yeah, now difficulty I think with that will be is that my understanding of the regulations, should a driver not set a time in qualifying, of which there are 2 potentially in that car, the car will be permitted to start the race, provided the other nominated drivers have each set a time. The grid position will be determined by an average of the remaining drivers entered, but the car will then get 10-place grid drop.
Yeah. So for the moment, it looks like it's pretty well placed 7th on the average, but as you say, wherever it ends up, plus the grid drop. But the important thing is it's in the race, and as we make the point, you know, with 12 hours, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're 7th or 10th or 12th on the grid. Pride only at stake. So the last few cars will make their way to the pit lane, and we are about 6.5 minutes or so away from the green light being on at the end of the pit lane. So Peter Roberts, the race director, and his team trying to just nudge things along and get the cars back out on track. And here you go with one of the perils of staying out to the very end. Casper Stevenson, for him, it was worth it because he did improve. But, you know, you then lose another, two and a bit minutes coming back into the pit lane. Other teams are already hard at work. Drivers are in, drivers are settled, drivers are ready. And you're still coming into the pit lane, losing that window of the time between the 2 parts of the session.
Yep, so the final few cars enter the pit lane. We are due to get this next session underway in around about probably 5 minutes' time. So for part 3, David Fuminelli was fastest of all for Kessel Racing, 1 minute 51.2, and this is going to be, is that the average time that's up there? That is driver 2. That's the session time, yeah. So Dennis Marshall, 2nd quickest with a 1 minute 51.960. Aaron Telitz was 3rd quickest with a 1 minute 52.5. Then it was Sergei Borisov that was 4th, with Adam Smalley there in 5th place, Marco Pulcini 6th, Wayne Boyd 7th, Philip Fernandez Laser there in 8th place. Tanit Saran-Therical sitting there in 9th place, and Dustin Blattner for Herbert Motorsport completing the top 10.
That's not bad from Sergi Borisov. Sorry, Alan, go on.
A quick word with Aaron, who's down here. He's been very patient. It's hot work out there, I can see.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough work out there. You know, in America, track limits are just the grass, so I'm not quite used to all of that over here yet. But it was fun. The Optimum car was awesome, so we're looking good still.
You got a strong lineup in this car, you know.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's pretty much the pole lineup from Barcelona 24-hour race earlier this year. So yeah, Todd's gonna go send it for us here.
How does the car feel?
It feels good, yeah. The car feels really nice. Obviously, conditions at night are good for quick lap time, so yeah.
We feel a sort of, we were talking about this earlier on in the commentary, when darkness falls, even though it's like daylight out on the circuit, feels special. As a racing driver, does it feel special?
Yeah, it does feel special, and this place is so lit up. I've never driven at a track that has quite this much lighting.
I'm not sure there are many circuits that do light.
No, I mean, it's just like daytime out there, honestly, yeah.
And that's what it feels like on track, does it? Although you've got a complete, on the horizon, you've got a totally dark sky, you've got the lights of the harbour and everything in the background. It sets this out as being something totally unique, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a super unique track to drive at night. Even like Daytona, which is very well lit, it's not even close to as bright as it is here. This is literally like daytime, just it's white light instead of sunlight.
You just had a couple of words before we got our final segment underway. Can you impart what you said?
Yeah, just giving Todd a little bit of advice, telling him to go have some fun out there. This is racing. We're here to compete and win, but also to have fun. And he's going to
Aaron, did you use the phrase "send it"?
I did not. I did not.
Right, okay. Very good news. Well done. Thank you for talking to us, Aaron. Top man, Aaron down here in pit lane.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I don't know a great deal about Alan Tellitz. I've never really come across him racing on this side of, on the European side of the Atlantic, but good to see him making the trip from the States. Himself and Todd Coleman known each other well, David, because they went superbly well in the IMSA Michelin Pilote Challenge this year, finished 6th overall in that.
Aaron's an accomplished painter as well, and when he was trying to raise funds to go racing, sold his paintings to get a bit of extra cash.
Oh, right, okay.
Go racing. So, quick driver, good painter, and he was on the Monet in that session.
Well done.
There you go. Worth a wait.
And it goes further downhill from here,
yes,
does it?
Indeed, yes.
You were thinking about that all the way through the interview, weren't you? You could tell. I could hear the cogs whirling away. We're about 3 minutes away from starting the fourth and final part of this session, and on average times at the moment, the number 69 Optimum Motorsport McLaren is around about a quarter of a second quicker than the second place number 16 Porsche from Proton Huber Motorsport. That's on average times across all of the sessions that we've seen so far. Third quickest on the average times is the number 51 AF Corsa. That is about another 7/10 off that on average times. And next up in terms of average times would be the number 7 Herbert Motorsport Porsche, which is the second of the two. And that is literally 13,000th shy of that. So it is quite close in some areas in terms of the average times. We'll have to wait and see. The leading car that we've got at the moment in GT3 Pro is that's fastest overall. The leading car in GT3 Pro-Am, potentially on average times, will be the number 51 Ferrari. Leading car in Am would be the number 7 Porsche, and the leading car in the newly introduced Cup class for this year, which caters for cars built to Carrera Cup specification or Porsche Cup specification. It's the number 91 QMMF by HRT Performance Porsche that is fastest of all. Alan, I could hear air guns in the background. Are we handing back down to you, or was that just some ambient I was getting? Just some ambient, I think so. We'll wait and see. So the fast lane is now open. No takers just as yet, other than by the look of things, we do have the Lamborghini making its way out. So ARC Bratislava will be heading down there. And on the basis of this is the final session that we have got. That is going to be, is it Miro Konopka? Is he the one driver that we've not seen out in that one so far?
I think that's right, yes.
I think it will be him. And now we won't know until the car breaks the beam at pit lane exit, which it can't do until we go green. And that's the point at which the transponder registers. But I think it'll be Miro Konopka, who is 62 years of age nowadays. And when that car had the off earlier on in the hands of his son, Adam Konopka, it was nice to see in the garage the two of them were working with the team to repair the rear wing on that car. So, you know, they don't just pay for their drive and come out here. They were mucking in to try and get that car repaired.
I can't remember the Konopkas in Lamborghinis in GT3 terms. I mean, for a while they'd moved on to LMP2 spec machinery. The other car to watch in this is going to be number 4 Mercedes, isn't it, with Jules Gounon behind the wheel. He was in Sepang last weekend and had a win, even though he never got in the car in a red flag race. So that was one of his easier wins. He then went off to go and test the Alpine for a couple of days, and then got here and thrown back into a GT car.
And that's the thing with the professional GT drivers, you know, they will get Christmas at home, but for a good chunk of them, that will be it. They'll be off to Daytona.
Yeah. And then to Bathurst, and on it goes.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so the lights go green at the end of the pit lane, and our final 15 minutes then underway.
So it is, Miroslav Konopka that is behind the Lamborghini. We've got Jiatong Yang out at the wheel of the HRT Performance Porsche. Alessandro Cozzi jumps on board the number 51 Ferrari. Mika Stanley jumps on board the number 42 Toro Verde GT Porsche. And those are the 4 cars that have exited the pit lane so far in this session. Takers just as yet. Now, I just noticed I only just picked up on the timing screen for Yang Jiatong. They've got Christian name, surname the wrong way around, have they not?
They have, although bear in mind that Chinese first and surnames are always a law unto themselves. So we normally go Liang Jiatong, but what they have done is the westernised way of doing it. But Liang Jiatong is
the correct, I think I said Jiatong Yang and then realised that it was the wrong way around.
Yeah, the one that I can never get right is Kang Ling or Ling Kang, or which way around it should be. But mercifully, he's not here to worry about. David Gosner now takes over the family mule, the Mercedes, the green Mercedes. Misha Stanley is at the wheel of 42. Matt Bell, one to watch. Vasily Vladikin, number 96. Matt Bell is at the wheel of the 88 Dragon Ferrari. Number 74 Kessel Ferrari. Frank Weder, who is another rapid, if underrated, driver. So he's another one to keep an eye on. Clock ticks on down. 13 minutes we have. And 51 Ferrari then of Alessandro Cozzi heading towards us. Another driver to watch, David Perel, number 55 for Rinaldi. David, who started off in real world racing many years ago, ran out of money, started a business that was involved in sim racing. And that gave him not only a successful business, but a means to come back into racing. He's the Coach Dave behind the Coach Dave Academy.
Oh, is he? I didn't realise
that's
that.
him. Yeah, for sim racing.
Yeah.
And
Spa 24-hour winner as well, isn't it?
In class, yeah. And has raced at Le Mans, raced in WEC, and so forth. So, he's made a business out of esports, but it's given him the chance to come back into real-world racing. And the more he does, the better and better he gets. So the South African driver, David Perel, will be one to watch. He's in the Pro-Am class, but again, that's a Rinaldi Ferrari that should be well-placed come the end tomorrow evening.
Yeah, we'll wait and see how he might get on. For the moment, we're looking at Alessandro Cozzi, who has set the timing screens alight with a purple Sector 1. Fran Reuter is purple through Sector 2 on their first out laps. We've still got the Santaloc Audis sitting rather patiently in the pit lane, both the number 25 and the number 26 car. The 25 car is the white car, the 26 is the silver.
I was trying to do a Patience of the Saint to lock, but it didn't really work. It wasn't worth the wait, was it?
No. Very underwhelming.
Yes. It's been a long day. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm stuck with you for the best part of 14 hours tomorrow. So let's have a look and see what the second sector looks like for Alessandro Cozzi at this stage. He's just hitting his way through turn number 9, and it's not great through the second sector. You really need to be down in the 46s through the second sector, but it is just the first flying lap for him, so we'll wait and see. And, of course, he's got a bit of traffic that he's going to have to deal with towards the end of the lap, and I think that's the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari, is it, that's directly ahead of him now?
May well be, yes. So Kessel versus AF Corsa. Matt Bell's just gone on to a quick lap. Another one that we need to keep an eye on is Gilles Magnus, who has been an absolute revelation these last couple of years in World Challenge. And your starter for 10 is what linked Gilles Magnus to the British Touring Car Championship.
You may as well tell me.
Apart from being a spectator at one round this year.
Go on.
He's managed by Rob Huff.
Oh, is he? Right, okay.
So it's a tenuous link, but anyway. Gilles Magnus then for Santaloc is not yet, but he will be soon onto a flying lap. And the best of the session, Alessandro Cozzi, a 154.817. There's a lot more to come. I'm still looking at now anything in the 151s here and better.
Yeah, Fran Reuter has gone over the start-finish line and done a 154.181 as well. David Arrigon, who is a 5 times former winner of this event, has just gone purple through the first sector and was probably about 2/10 up on the time that Fran Reuter had put through just that first sector. So David Arrigon is always going to be one to watch at the wheel of the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari. In the meantime, over to complete the lap, that's Simpson Motorsport that's just gone through, the number 96 car, and for that part of the session, that car is in the hands of Vasily Vladikin, who did briefly go fastest, but straight away Fran Reuter dips into the 1 minute 51s, 151.882 to go fastest in this session, 4th overall now.
Jules Gounon with a new set of sticker tyres on the 2Cs Mercedes ready to go. So a 51.8 then for Fran Reuter, about 6/10 down on the best out of Q3, but still an impressive effort. And now David Arrigon with what was an absolute best in Sector 1. He's got an absolute best in Sector 2, but his Sector 1 best taken off him by Fran Reuter. David Arrigon goes up towards the line. David Perel has just done an absolute best in the 3rd sector and has done a 152.103 as the lap time. And David Arrigon comes up towards turn 16. Now, is this going to be in the 151s then? We are looking at the moment at a 51.2 as the best, a 51.8 in this, and a 51.5. Arrigon puts the car 3rd, briefly makes it 2nd now as the order shuffles again. So David Arrigon for Kessel is 2nd, and the lap time is a 151.502. But I still think we can go better than that before the end.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Fran Reuter still on a good lap, though. He's about 40 seconds away from completing the lap. He's just dropped a little bit of time, though, through the middle sectors. Probably about maybe 4/10 down on where he ought to be through that middle sector of the lap. So David Arrigon to the top of the times now on average times, as again the order has shuffled. So number 11 Ferrari, quickest of all. The number 16 Porsche from Proton Huber Motorsport, currently Sergei Stolyarov, 2nd quickest. And 3rd quickest is another Porsche, Alfred Renauer, doing good things for Herbeth Motorsport, and that car is 3rd quickest on average times at the moment.
But what the Renauers don't know about driving or engineering Porsches is not worth knowing, is it? I mean, they have specialised in these cars and in long-distance races for so long. Up to the timing line then again comes Fran Reuter, and that lap is a 52.6, so junked a little bit of time in that last sector.
So they've been driving Porsches for an hour after hour after hour, have they?
Keep going.
No, sorry.
It's no better than my Santalot one.
That's me done.
Yes, cometh the Renauer, cometh the man. So Matt Bell, an improver last time, 151.6. So we're getting there, aren't we, towards a good 151 time. A 51.5 for David Arrigon, the best thus far. But we haven't really seen the best out of a Gilles Magnus lap. He goes across the line now with an absolute best last sector. Gilles Magnus does a 151.5, 151.587. But over the timing line has just gone Jules Gounon. And that was a start-up lap. So now Jules Gounon onto a flyer, and with about 7 minutes to go. Yellow flag at turn 12. That might scupper him. Red flag as well. So session stopped. Someone has had a drama at turn 12. That's coming towards the hotel, isn't it? And the clock is, for the moment, still ticking. Right, it's been reset at 7 minutes and a second, but someone has had a drama out of our view at turn 12.
Yeah, the shape of it would suggest a Porsche.
It is number 16.
That was going to be my guess of one of two.
And like all of these things, you throw a red and then Sergei Stolyarov drives away. Grumble, grumble, say race control. Just a self-induced lose. Did he hit anything? Oh yeah, he did. The Recticel doing its job, so the Porsche will drive back. That was the one that Sven Muller was a hero in earlier on, but Sergei Stolyarov has put it in the Recticel barrier.
He was rather lucky there not to clip the barriers on the inside while he was still out of control, because the nose of the car wasn't far away, was it, from clipping that barrier on the inside of the corner before he then skittered off onto the outside. So yeah, red flag out, everybody has to dive into the pit lane, clock stops again, and pretty much midway through this session. So 7 minutes and 1 second to go.
And there you've got the peril of going out a bit later, because that is absolutely on the first flying lap for Jules Gounon, whereas others had done a flying lap already. So he's the one now that's, if you like, got half a session to play with, and it ramps up the pressure on him.
But if anybody can deal with that pressure, no, Jules Gounon is the man, isn't it?
No question about it, yeah. But it just throws that run plan out of the window. Conversely, you could argue that it was the right thing to do to red flag it anyway, because even under a yellow flag there, you're compromising
the lap times, yeah.
This kind of makes it fair for everybody, even if you lose a lap by coming in and then going back out of the pit lane. So, the Porsche, I don't think, has suffered much in the way of damage. It will head back to the team. May not go back out again with just 7 minutes on the clock. And we've now got number 7 Porsche at the top of the times.
Yeah, which is a GT3 AM car at the very top of the times on average time. Average time for that car, 1 minute 52.934 from the 3 drivers in that car. And it is nearly 0.2 of a second quicker on average time than the second quickest car at the moment, which is the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari.
Indeed so. So it's going to be an intriguing grid. Right, the last few cars come to the pit lane. The road is clear, so it shouldn't take long, should it, for the signal to be given to get cars back out again. Number 99 Porsche is a bit confused as it comes down the pit lane as to where it's meant to be, but Patrick Kolb, who started off as a very quick historic racer, goes back to the team. Who else do we need to still come? 1 or 2 more. So, can that barrier be left like that? I don't think it's suffered any deformation, has it? It's not deformed in any way. Car bounced off it and drove away.
So I think...
Oh, no, there is a break, if you look, isn't there, in the grey at the front line. So that's just going to be sort of...
They'll want that sorting, won't they?
Yeah,
it's just a quick fix, isn't it, to click it back into place. Of course, the marshals can only hop over the wall once they get the all clear from race control that they're able to do so. So that's why the subtle delay. And then hopefully they, with a few of them, might just be able to close that little gap up a bit without having to disconnect it all and then reconnect it all back together. So no indication just as yet as to when this session will restart. We're just coming up to 8:45 in the evening here, local time in UAE, with 7 minutes of qualifying still to go. Still plenty of work for the teams to do. So even though the cars come into the pit lane, of course, the first thing they've got to do, David, is take the wheels and the tyres back off again, the car, whilst it's up on its air jacks, put them back in the ovens out the back, make sure that they keep the tyre temperature in the car, tyre temperatures in those Pirelli tyres.
I wonder whether any other team is going to do what we saw Proton Huber do earlier on and now park it, because if they feel they've done enough, and they're not going to get everything back up to temperature and be able to improve in the remaining 7 minutes and a second, then that might well be it. We will see.
I was just looking at, why are Herbeth Motorsport top on average times? Well, we didn't see the car out in Q1 because it's just 3 drivers in that car, but in Q2, 1 minute 53.6, in Q3, 1 minute 52.8, in Q4, 1 minute 52.3. Very, very consistent from all 3 drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have the variance that you would have, say, in the Pro or the Pro-Am. We've got 3 AMs, which are all within a whisker of each other, but all very, very quick.
Yeah. So that car potentially is going to be there or thereabouts in the first stint, but then as the order starts to settle, it'll be interesting to see, first of all, who starts the car and whether they can keep the car up there. But as I say, Dustin Blattner has turned out to be a very shiny bronze this year. Really, really impressive Dustin Blattner has been. And it was here last year, I think, that we first came across him. Ralph Bowen has been driving Porsches for ever and a day, and the Renault twins the same. Right, we are 2 minutes away from getting the session back underway. 2 minutes before the green light goes on. Well, that's the estimated restart time, but hopefully the sort of big boys Lego operation has been clicked into place over at turn 14.
Yeah, they were just finishing off the barriers last time that we saw that, and you can see marshals leaping back over the barriers, squatting down to get back under the debris fencing, and therefore the information will have been gone to race control that we're ready to go. Yeah, as ever, fantastic job done. So, minute and 30 seconds to go. Fast lane is now open, so again, that process of bolting the tyres that they've only just unbolted off the car, back on, and first of those to trundle its way down the pit lane, that is the number 7 Porsche, is it not?
It is. Alfred Renault wants to see if he can go quicker at the ARC Bratislava garage. They look on as Dad, Miro Konopka, heads down the pit lane. Also number 17 Porsche is on its toes, which is now Patron, Enrico Fulgenzi, at the wheel of the car. 74 Ferrari joins the queue. Who did we put into that? Oh, Fran Rader, didn't we? Yes. And number 2 Audi which is now Gregory Servet, also down pit lane.
I think, is that David Arrigon that's 5th in the queue as well?
May well be.
Looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah, because the 51 Ferrari Alessandro Cozzi, I can still see it in the pit lane. Also trundling his way down pit lane is going to be David Gosner.
Trundling, that's a little harsh.
Well, he's got to trundle because
gently, I would have said.
Pit lane speed limit
okay.
exists. So that car is, well, considering it's had its off, it's still bearing a little bit of damage. And it's, what's it going to be, 22nd on combined times, isn't it, at the moment? And amazingly, in this session, 19th quickest.
Yeah.
Good effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. They're not done yet, so let's see whether they can find another 10th or 2 as the green light goes on. And so our final 7 minutes are in business, with some good to go, others being a bit more relaxed. And Alfred Renauer heads them out. Interesting, isn't it? You've got one of the Cup cars behind the 911, the GT3. That same recognisable Porsche shape, but the Cup car, which when you see it at a one make event, Super Cup, whatever, it looks like the real deal. You put it next to the GT car and it looks very pedestrian. Away goes the Simpson Audi, the Vasily Vladikin.
Yeah, Optimum Motorsport making their way back out of the circuit as well. Todd Coleman, the American. So we heard from Adam Telitz, who he's been doing good things with over in the IMSA Michelin Pilote Challenge this year. And pit lane slowly emptying. There's still a few that haven't gone out. Proton Huber Motorsports, Sergei Stolyarov has not gone out yet. Gilles Magnus not out. David Perel has only just exited the pit lane.
But is Stolyarov doing what Muller did? In other words, not bothering.
But also Jules Goulnon has not gone out, and
he will.
At the moment, 2C's Motorsports are only just bolting the wheels onto that car. Yeah.
One go, one shot. That's all he needs.
Super pole, is
Absolutely.
it?
It is. Yeah.
The tyres off. It had only done essentially the outlap, hadn't it? So they made a tower of tyres, put them next to the car, and they've now wheeled out another brand new set of tyres for Jules' car. So that is once again a brand new set of tyres on number 4.
And the earlier set then presumably goes back into the oven in case it's needed.
I guess so, yeah.
Is there drama around 26, the silver Santa Lock Audi? Because I've just noticed what I thought was one of the officials striding towards it, and
our camera crew as well.
Right.
Yeah, they've just closed down the front of the car and they're putting the dollies underneath it. So you're right to say there is a problem. The dollies is the sign they're going to manipulate the car into the garage and work on it inside.
It was a scrutineer that headed towards the car, and as you know, scrutineers have a given walk and a given stare, and he didn't like something. So there's trouble at mill for number 26 Santa Lock Audi, and that mark should have been Jim Pla, shouldn't it, at the wheel?
It should, yeah. So Jim Pla, did he get a flying lap in before we saw the red flag come out? I think he did, didn't he, Jim Pla?
Hang on.
No, he didn't.
No,
he didn't.
No.
He did not get
He
a
was
flying
on
lap
a flying lap, but he, like Gounon, was a victim of the red flag. So
and if they can't get that sorted, then that means that not all of the drivers have qualified. So the average time is from those that did, but a 10-place grid drop.
Yeah, and with 4 minutes to go, I don't think that's going to get a time, because even if they fix what needs fixing and get it out, but it's very odd that it was on a flying lap, comes into the pit lane and then has a problem and won't go again. As it's well, anyway, let's see if Alan can investigate, but certainly a problem.
It does look as though Proton Huber Motorsports have parked Sergei Stolyarov for part 2 of this qualifying session. That car still resides in the pit lane. We know of the problems for Jim Pla. Patrick Kolb, also for Lion Speed, has not ventured back out. And neither of Toro Verde with Mika Stanley.
I think so much of it is, why bother?
Yeah.
They're not going to gain a vast amount. Gounon is probably going to have a red-hot go on his next lap, which will be a proper flying lap. 3 minutes to go.
David Arrigon is going to have a proper go on his next lap, the true flying lap. For me, Herbert Motorsport sticking Alfred Renauer back out goes to show they still think there's a bit more to come from him and the car, and he's casing point of that quicker than he's previously gone through the middle sector.
Absolutely right. And Gilles Magnus also is having a good go, and he's about to get to the end of Sector 1 on a flying lap. So here is the white Audi for the man that won gold in GT World Challenge Europe Endurance this year. It was a very quick touring car race, of course, Gilles Magnus in TCR Europe and Benelux. Down, though, in Sector 1, so not an improver on this lap. He'll certainly get one more lap out of the session, won't he?
He certainly will, yeah. The other car I'm keeping an eye on is Louis Perret at the wheel of the number 8 Garage 59 McLaren. He's going quicker than he's previously gone through the first and second sector, but he didn't get many laps in, and I think that is a car that he's only truly now going to set his first absolute flying lap in this one. Alan's got more news from the pit lane.
I've investigated the 26 Audi. It's a power steering problem they've got, so no, the answer is no, they won't get this car out.
All right, thanks, Alan. So it looked like they were adding oil, but it may well have been power steering fluid. And the other car's going all right in the hands of Gilles Magnus, absolutely charging towards turn 9. But Jim Pla is not going to get back out, so that's going to be an Audi near to, if not at the back of the grid. Yeah,
I mentioned keep an eye on Louis Perret and what he was doing in the number 8 Garage 59 McLaren. Well, he briefly on combined times moved well up through the order. He's lost one further place now, but it's still going to put that car at this stage he's dropping down through the order again is the problem. I think the lap time's been disallowed potentially. 10th quickest in this session, but did the lap time get disallowed? Can't see it on the race control messages, but he leapt up through the order, has now tumbled back down again all of a sudden.
Yeah, but we don't get the track limit laps disallowed on that. That's other messages. So yeah, there's another page that the teams have access to which confirms the laps being disallowed, but I think you're right, it's gone. Right, how's Gounon getting on? Because the 2C's Mercedes now is up to 4th on average. Jules is 2nd in this part of the session, having just done a 51.5, and he's done an absolute best in the last sector.
Yeah, doing what Jules Gounon does best. He won't be holding off either on this. What for him will be his final qualifying lap. So he weaves his way at maximum pace through turns 2, 3 and 4 down into the braking area for turn number 5. We ride on board with Jules Gounon pushing hard through the first sector of this lap, but not quite as quick as the previous one, David.
And it's a 10th down on his best lap against Davide Rigon. So Gounon is a 51.5, Rigon is a 51.4, and the Ferrari is that little bit quicker because Jules Gounon's sector 1 time is 23.4, Rigon 23.3. Rigon is behind him on the road, but just ever so slightly up on the times, and we've got 20 seconds on the clock. So it's this lap, no more for Gounon. This is when he's got to pull the pin and deliver.
Yep, so flat out through the kink at turn number 8, up towards the braking area for turn number 9. You can see from the onboard there's a little bit of traffic just in the distance, but that's so far up the road that it's not going to worry him as yet. Through the second sector, what does Jules Gounon do? The answer is he is a little bit quicker through the second sector than he has gone before, so gave a bit of time today. You can see the mid-corner correction as well. He's dancing around on the very, very edge of adhesion, so he's completed the second sector. Davide Rigon is about to complete that second sector, and he was quickest overall through the first sector, but he's the one that's given the time away in the sector too.
Yeah, he has, slightly. Alan?
Do you know, they were seconds away from getting the 26 Audi back out. They just ran out of time.
Oh, okay.
It needed one more tyre. So I guess they were just going to send the car out and make sure that the power steering problem had been rectified.
True enough. So Jules Gounon up towards the timing line and goes through, and the lap then is a 1:51.281. That's the best of the session, but Davide Rigon has not done yet. So Rigon was up in the first sector, he was down in the second. He's heading up towards the end of the lap and goes through now, and Davide Rigon's time is a 1:51.163, quicker than anybody. So Davide Rigon just edges it away from Jules Gounon, a 51.1, best lap of the weekend.
Fantastic lap from Davide Rigon, say 5 times a former winner of this event, and Kessel Racing will be hugely pleased with that. But on average time, they won't start from pole position. It will amazingly be a GT3 AM car, the number 7 Herbert Motorsport car, the Porsche, that will start from pole position. Their average time across their drivers, 1:52.896, about a 1/10 of a second quicker than anybody else.
It's going to be a good race, this, isn't it? The more we see, the more it gets intriguing. So Davide Rigon's efforts, faster than anybody in any part of qualifying, but that car's still only second on average. The Renaults, the evenly matched Renault and Bone and Blattner Porsche, to the top of the times. We'll have a look at the order in a few moments, but interruptions aside, that was a really, really interesting qualifying session, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the whole dynamic of taking the average across all of the sessions is what makes it so very different when you've got 3 or 4 drivers in which to do so. And it was consistent really from all 3 drivers in the number 7 car, but you look across all 4 drivers that you've got in the number 11 Ferrari, and we've got a 1 minute 51, a 1 minute 51, and 1 minute 53. But you'd also got a 1 minute 56, which was for the lower graded driver of them all, Rohatcha, I think. So he was a driver that was slower, and it's as a casing point of what I said, if you can get a bronze that's consistent and is quick, that's the key. And on this occasion, it's probably one of the bronzes that hasn't quite been as quick as some of the other drivers in there, and that's what, just by a tenth of a second, kept them off pole.
So you, as Mark's made the point, have an AM from a Pro-Am, and then the best Pro class car is only third, but it'll all be rather different, I think, when we get to the opening part of the race, which will start at some ungodly hour tomorrow morning, like 9 o'clock, won't it? So it's going to be a cool temperature, and then you're going into the heat of the day and then coming out of it the other side tomorrow. So the tyre wear is going to be really interesting. You might be able to double stint tyres early on. But
you won't do the heat of the day.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Into Parc Fermé come the quicker cars out of the classes, as instructed by race control. Top 3 in each class. And the last few will make their way to the pit lane.
And I suppose, whilst for us, you know, the work will stop soon, for all of the teams, it's going to be an even longer night ahead of a very long day for them tomorrow.
Yeah, and you would not want to be a tyre change mechanic, would you, in overalls in the heat with heavy tyres, pit stop after pit stop. There were 9 of the so-called imposed pit stops, or regulation pit stops if you prefer, but with the to a time, admittedly, but at the end of 12 hours, still having to lug those wheels around the car and do the pit stops. It's not much fun.
No, and of course they've still got to re-prep the cars after qualifying and get them all ready to go for tomorrow morning. Yeah, so the cars will already be released tomorrow morning from the pit lane out onto the grid. It's going to be, what, 8:15, 20 past 8 in the morning?
Yeah, very early indeed. Well, a very good effort by the number 7 Porsche, Alfred Renauer, doing a great job at the end of that part of the qualifying session. So number 7, Alan Hyde, it is that will start on pole position tomorrow. Alfred Renauer, fresh out of the car.
He certainly is, and he's standing next to me with a smile on his face. It's such an intriguing qualifying session. The average consistency over each segment needs to be absolutely spot on.
It was mega qualifying for us with the overall pole position. For sure it was because of my teammates. They did a mega job, Ralph and Dustin. Best position for tomorrow.
Did you go into this qualifying session think that that might be the result at the end of it?
To be honest, not really. For sure we had the target to finish first in class, but that it's our overall pole position, it's much nicer.
So tonight is a time to celebrate, but you don't have too much time to celebrate because we start pretty early tomorrow morning.
That's true. We have a start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I don't think we will celebrate today.
No, I think just a burger and off to bed early.
That's it, yeah.
Alfred, well done. Many congratulations. Thank you very much for talking to us down in a very, very beautiful Parc Fermé.
Calm has descended now, hasn't it, Alan, after all the drama? Although for fans here, there is going to be another race very shortly because the single-seaters will be back out for their second race of the day. So the car on pole position, as we say, is in AM, and the second AM is just under, on the average, about 2 seconds, just under 2 seconds adrift.
Yeah, and that car that's second in AM will be the Haas RT number 2 Audi. So just to confirm it then, we won't get a graphic, but just to confirm it, this is again subject to the official grid being issued, but as things stand at the moment, it looks like the number 7 Herbert Motorsport Porsche will start from pole position, and the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari will start alongside it. Row 2 of the grid potentially for tomorrow. Third quickest overall, the number 16 Proton Hubert Motorsport Porsche, followed by the hard-charging 2Cs Motorsport number 4 McLaren. Jules Goudon doing great things in that latter stint to haul the car up to 4th quickest overall. 5th will be number 74 Kessel Racing with their Ferrari, and completing the top 6 will be another Ferrari, which will be the number 51 car. Then it's going to be the first of the 2 Santa Lock Audis, the number 25 car, followed by the number 69 Optimum Motorsport McLaren. Then we will see the number 55 Ferrari, followed by the second of the 2, or first of the 2 Garage 59 McLarens, and then just to wrap up, number 88 Dragon Racing and their Ferrari will be next up before we see the number 59 Garage Racing McLaren. As for the car that was quickest in the Cup class, well, it was the number 91 QMMF by HRT Performance Porsche that is going to be quickest in the Cup class. Second quickest in the Cup class is going to be Enrique Enrico Fulgenzi racing, followed by Toro Verde. They'll be the top 3 in the Cup class, David.
So that is provisionally the order, and as we make the point, they'll be out on track early tomorrow with coverage starting from 8:30, race start at 9 o'clock. It's the Gulf 12 hours, but the first part is 8, then there's a 2-hour break, and then the drama of a start happens again a couple of hours later to take us through the final 4 hours. We look forward to your company tomorrow for all the action from the Gulf 12 hours. From Mark Warrell, Alan Hyde and David Anderson, that's it for tonight. And we'll leave you with a look at the highlights of qualifying for the 2024 Lenovo Gulf 12 hours.